The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline. The Existential Crisis Hotline.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Existential Crisis Hotline. I'm Cameron Cope, and tonight my audio is working. It's actually working the first time right out the gate, so that's pretty good. I'm learning. But hi to everybody in the chat, and if you're watching this on the replay or watching it live, I got a really interesting video for us to go through tonight and kind of dissect and talk about. But before I get into that, I just pulled up a few things from what's been going on over the past, really just yesterday and today in the news. And by the news, I mean what's happening on X. And that's the true source of news. But I'm just going to start with a little rapid fire just to kind of build up a little bit, continuing the theme that we've been developing over the past few live streams. Hey, Gaetan, what's up? Oh, for anybody who's in the chat who's been, a regular on the stream, you might notice I made some of you guys moderators. And also... there's like an OG button or a badge. So I think you can only have one badge at a time. But for my OGs, you got the OG badge. I thought that was kind of cool. I was just kind of exploring the chat moderation options. But Gaetan, you, Sandro, when they come in, you can let them know if they're not already here. Owen, I made you guys moderators so you can help me moderate the chat, as long as you're in here. Because I had some interesting characters last night. Somebody said I was shilling for Agenda 21. I'm like, bro, I've been talking about Agenda 21 since before 2021, all right? So who even talks about Agenda 21 anymore? It's Agenda 30, so I don't know what he's talking about. Why would I be shilling for something that already happened? Anyways, so if you guys see anything weird, I also went into the AI moderation and tried to reduce like some of the filtering of comments, because like even just really benign stuff like was getting filtered automatically by the AI, but it turns out like the default is like everything's like up really high, so I kind of reduced some of that. But I'll leave it up to you guys, best judgment. Whenever people come in here trolling, you could just ban them, whatever. But anyway, so we'll kind of jump into it. I got some fun, lighthearted things. When I posted about the stream tonight, I said we're going to talk about God, alien human hybrids, the mission to the moon tomorrow, April 1st, April Fools, and a few other funny tidbits. So we'll jump into it. If you guys, when Owen gets in, if he comes in tonight, let him know that I made him a mod as well, so you guys can just don't ban each other. That's my only rule. Mods can't ban mods. All right. So if you ever wanted that internet moderator status, you've got it now. All right, but that'll help it out because it's kind of distracting when you get people coming in here just talking shit. Although it's funny too. All right, so let me jump over here. All right. So I thought this was Irony of the Year award goes to Marco Rubio. We'll see what he has to say.
And at the end of the day, I think that if there are people in Iran who now, given everything that's happened, are willing to move in a different direction for their country, that would be great. Imagine in Iran that instead of spending their wealth, billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, had spent that money helping the people of Iran, you'd have a much different country. So we are always hopeful that that would exist over there.
So I said that was kind of ironic, right? We're spending hundreds of billions on weapons and moon missions, which leads me to, let's see, I had the White House pulled up. Here it is, the White House. Tomorrow, Artemis 2 for all of humanity. They're going to the moon for all of humanity. Like, what the fuck is on the moon? Ridiculous. But a little bit more about that. So apparently, we've got the Artemis 2 mission tomorrow. They said weather's good. Oh, they're sending a woman to the moon. That's awesome. A black guy. That's good. That's good. What else? Maybe I'll play the sound.
We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals,
White guy? Come on.
we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together.
That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Man, I can't wait for that movie to come out tomorrow. That's going to be a good movie. What were you saying, Marco?
And at the end of the day, I think that if there are people in Iran who now, given everything that's happened, are willing to move in a different direction for their country, that would be great. Imagine in Iran that instead of spending their wealth, billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, had spent that money helping the people of Iran.
Imagine in America, instead of spending billions of dollars going to the moon, actually help the people in this country. Hey, but at least my gas bill's going up. So yeah, good news. Brisket, dude, like this has to be a joke. This whole thing has to be just like a big joke. Wait till you see the menu. Gaetan, you'll love this. Where is it? I don't know if you can see it. You can't see my cursor, but it says in the most common food items down the middle, it says barbecued beef brisket. What will satisfy the crew's sweet tooth? Pudding, cobbler, candy-coated almonds, cake, chocolate, and cookies. 5 Canadian products. Why the fuck is that relevant? Why does it matter how many Canadian products are going to the moon? Is this like a joint space mission with Canada? Or is this like, okay, you know what it is? Trump wants to take over Canada. And Mexico. Oh, I just figured it out. He wants to take over Canada and Mexico. So he's using this space mission to unite North America together. Dude, I just figured it out. 5 Canadian products. Tortilla count. They've got a live tortilla count. 58 tortillas that look like the moon. I'm glad we know how many tortillas they're going to have. How many cups of coffee does it take to power the Artemis crew? 43. Dude, I drink that many cups in a day. The spice level? There are 5 different hot sauces flying around the moon with the crew. You're telling me you're going to bring a bunch of hot sauce into outer space? Come on. What does he say? Hold on, let me move this chat thing up a little bit. It's like, look what we can do. Yeah, imagine us, if we're one nation, we could have mooses and mounties and maple syrup all over the space station. Imagine the spaceship covered in maple syrup. Maple syrup, chocolate spread, peanut butter, hot sauce. Got to get the hot sauce in there for the Mexicans. Got to get that almond butter for the white people. You know what I'm saying? Spicy mustard. Dude, this is a joke. 189 unique menu items. This is an official NASA post, guys. Maybe we should check out the website. No, it's just that. Let's see. Fresh foods will not be flying on Artemis 2, as Orion does not have refrigeration. Let's go back and check that menu. So you don't have refrigeration, but you're going to have barbecued beef brisket. Hope you like your beef brisket freeze dried. So I grew up in Houston, and they have like the that's like where the what do you call it, ground control is for the space missions. And so they have, it's called Space Center Johnson or something. Yes, it's called Johnson. But anyways, you can go, and like my grandparents would always take me there as a kid, and they have like a mock space shuttle cockpit you can go into. You know, you can go back into the laboratory. It's fun when you're a kid. And then I would always get my grandma would always buy me a little space suit, you know, like those little jumpsuits they wear. And the freeze-dried ice cream, which is fucking terrible, by the way. Vanilla breakfast drink. They have mango peach smoothies, but they don't have refrigeration. Broccoli au gratin, as some of my friends would say. I always say au gratin, and my Canadian friends make fun of me. Wheat flatbread. Mango salad. They love the mango. Let's see what else. Apollo missions relied on early food techniques with limited variety, while space shuttle missions expanded menu options and onboard preparation. The International Space Station benefits from regular resupply and occasional fresh foods. In contrast, Artemis II uses a fixed, pre-selected menu designed for a self-contained space vehicle with no resupply. I can't see the chat here. Whatever. But I have a pop out here. Artemis, Orion. Is the next one going to be Tel? Because they're archers? Yes, you can ban yourself. Gaitan, you can ban Sandro. You know, I was like, we went out to get dinner out tonight. Max completed the whole physics section of his techno tutor, so every time the kids complete like a big section, we go out to, instead of going out on birthdays, we go out to do that. Although we do have birthday dinners and stuff, you know, on their birthdays as well, but we usually go out to eat whenever it's like you finish like a level or something like that. But so we went out to eat, and we were just talking about this whole moon mission thing, and I'm like, why did they choose the name Artemis? Like, why is it, I mean, Artemis is the sister of Apollo, so I get it, but why is it always like Greek gods? Like, isn't that weird? There's actually a whole conspiracy rabbit hole there. I'm not prepared to go into it because I don't have any of that pulled up, but man, that would have been interesting. But well, maybe should we do a little deep dive, guys? Check this out. Who is Artemis? The Greek goddess of the hunt, wilderness, wild animals, the moon, and chastity. Let's see. Oh, that's too bad. The last time I asked it earlier, I have it as a screenshot because I sent it to Katie. When I asked AI earlier, hold on, Artemis, young girls. Let's just see what it says. The protector of the youth. Yes, there you go. She protects young girls. I'm like, dude, they're just rubbing it in our faces, man. They won't release all the Epstein files, but they'll send up Artemis to the moon. I just think that's funny. But if you look into all the history of NASA, Jet Propulsion Labs, this is where they developed, this is where NASA came out of, right? Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It was created by, let's see, Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was an American rocket engineer, chemist, and thelamite occultist. Oh, that's just normal. Totally normal. Totally normal. In 1939, okay, so let's see, wait. They renamed their thing to JPL in 43, right? I'm going to guess that's Keith in the chat. So don't ban him, guys, even though I'll allow that comment. He said, is it because they're going into the stars, so they're visiting the constellations named after Greek mythological figures? Yes, thank you. No, it's much more weird than that. Like, why are the stars named after Greek gods? Like, why didn't we... Okay. Think about it. I'm trying to think of an example. Like, if America took over Mexico, do you think we're still going to call it, like, Tijuana? Or are we going to be like, New Trump Town? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to name it our own shit. Why did they keep with the Greek weird gods and all that? Like, they could have named anything they want. Like, they could have called it, you know, I don't know. I can't think of something interesting, but they could have named it anything. Like, that star could have been called Freedom Rider, you know, or anything, right? But they named it after Greek gods. And even if somebody else is the one who named it, they kept the names. They could have named them other things. Okay, so they kept the names of the Greek god stars and all that, but then now we have to name every rocket and every mission after some weird Greek god? Like, that's kind of weird. But they're not occultists. Like, I mean, it's like, what am I applying that they're occultists or something? And then they believe like in, oh yeah, they are. The guy who founded JPL, which became NASA, was an occultist, a literal occultist. In 1939, so 4 years before they renamed their group JPL, he converted to Thelema, a religious movement founded by Aleister Crowley. His first wife, Helen Northrup, joined Crowley's OTO. He became the OTO branch leader in 1942, a year before they renamed it JPL. Historians of Western esotericism cite him as a prominent figure in propagating Thelema in North America. This fly, man. Parsons was dismissed from JPL and Aerojet in 1944 due to his involvement with OTO and his hazardous laboratory practices. Shortly afterward, L. Ron Hubbard defrauded Parsons of his life savings. What? What? I didn't know that. That's so random. Parsons worked as an explosive expert during the late 1940s, but his career in rocketry blasted off ended. I almost got that fly. Ended due to accusations of espionage and the increasing trend of McCarthyism. He died at 37 after a home laboratory explosion. I feel like he got fired from JPL because of the hazardous laboratory practices. I feel like the OTO stuff was more like a plausible firing excuse. They were like, look, this dude's fucking nuts, dude. He was blowing shit up. He literally killed himself in an explosion in 1952. His death was ruled an accident, but many of his associates suspected suicide or murder. So yeah, he's an important figure in the history of the space program. Kind of weird, right? It still exists. Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Here's NASA. Who created NASA? Wait, I feel like they just kind of jumped forward there. Traces its roots to the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA. Yeah, I see why they changed it. Doesn't really roll off the tongue. But who's like the I want to know like who was like the first guy. I didn't really say all that. I want to know the people behind it. Oh well. Look at that weird ass logo. What is this weird red thing? Do you see that? Do you guys... Yeah, exactly, Gaetan. Do you see like this weird chevron thing? Like, what is that about? What is that thing? Something. What is this thing? I think you guys know what I'm thinking. Some weird stuff. What is the occult meaning behind the NASA chevron? Conspiracy theories and alternative interpretations suggest that the red chevron inside the NASA meatball logo holds occult or hidden meanings. Yeah, I know. I want to know what they are. Serpent's tongue or deception. Oh! That's weird. Like a serpent's tongue. Oh, yeah, I can definitely see it. You guys see it? Huh. I can see that. I mean, what else does it mean? Anyways, I've gone down that rabbit hole a few times randomly, but I don't have any of that pulled up. Okay, so let's keep going. Just random stuff. I don't know if you guys saw this. We got Lindsey Graham by himself at Disney with a bubble wand. Apparently he doesn't have kids or children. Let me see here. Oops. Let me click back over here. Is Lindsey Graham married? He is not married. He has not ruled out marriage, guys. He hasn't ruled it out. Look at that face. He's so lovable. When was he born? 55. How old does that make him? 71? Yeah, something like that. 71, 72, or 70, 71. Wow. No kids. No wife. Weird. So, what's he doing at Disney by himself? Look, it says, with a bubble wand. That's just weird, right? Like, I saw him on Fox News, like, probably 2 weeks ago, talking about Israel they should have leveled Gaza. They should have wiped it off the map. And then he's like, at Disney World. Weird. I'm just, like, these are the people making the decisions about whether we have tortillas on the moon or not. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is crazy. So Kristi Noem, she was the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and she was also the governor of, like, North or South Dakota. So her husband apparently has a secret life where he wears fake breasts, and he sends pictures to people online. And that's pretty weird. That's pretty weird. All right. Moving along into the weirdness. So here's a recent thing from the other day. Matt Gaetz on another guy, Benny Johnson's podcast.
I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
Non-human biologics, interracial alien mating? What the F is going on? Look, wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing? Can you please unpack that?
I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army. Came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there, and what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group, members of Congress, to all show up at the same time at all of these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to simultaneously show up at like 8 locations at one time.
What if it's at Disney World? What if he's like, I'm here for the interracial alien breeding program. Oh my god, dude. What the hell? Senator Babbitt, I don't know who that is, some senator, obviously, announces you'd be very surprised who's not entirely human. I sent that to Drake and he was like, it's probably George Bush. If you know the Destiny lore, it makes sense. But says he can't disclose more because the alien hybrid program is classified. Then why are you saying anything, dude? Can't just tease us. And dude, okay, so I saw this random tweet the other day. It says, remember when Elon kicked Kanye off Twitter for posting the Raelian swastika? You remember, guys, when we were talking about this the other day? So apparently back in like 22, Kanye West was posting that. And he's got this new music video out. I'll show you. Kanye music video. Here's his latest music video. Oh, that's just that clip. Let me see if I can find... Let me find the good one. Here it is. The song's called Father.
Give us love another day and hear our prayer, please, Lord, whenever we pray. You've been good. I just want to say thank you, Lord. I just want to say thank you, Lord. You've been better to us than we've been to ourselves. Father,
know you wonder where the F he been, but I'm back to life like an EpiPen. SG still in a leopard skin, and check me out, then check me in. See this coat, nigga? Bye to my old self. Wake up to the new me. I used to be a world star. Now I'm making Newsweek. I used to hang on a 9. Now I bought 2 streets. Cottage Grove to King Drive. Yeah, this life is a movie. Bye to my old self. Wake up to the new me. I used to be a world star. Now I'm making Newsweek. I used to hang on a 9. Now I bought 2 streets. Cottage Grove to King Drive. Yeah, this life is a movie.
Cause I look good, I smell good, I feel good.
And you sing good.
And make love good.
Know you wonder where the F I been. I been going hard like a crack syringe. I been breaking bad, now I'm back again. Getting meal tickets, no raffling. You see these kicks, nigga? Made checks off the right steps.
What the fuck? Like, it's weird, right? This is new. This is brand new, right? Something weird's going on out there in the whole matrix, shall we say. I mean, you just look at all these pieces. Like, we're going to the moon apparently tomorrow. They're saying we have alien human hybrids. Like, why is all this information being pushed? And Kanye West's new music video is like him as an alien getting arrested, and there's a UFO outside. It's just fucking weird. And then the Christianity theme as well, right? And we did a live stream, I don't know, last week or something about the connection between transhumanism through religion and so forth, right? Man, it's just weird. I just thought this was funny. I saw this earlier, but this will get leading into our topic for tonight.
You're so narrow-minded.
No.
You don't believe in anything.
Yes, I do.
Thought you were atheist.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I don't believe in anything, does it? It means I don't believe in any god.
How can you not believe in God?
Which one?
What do you mean?
Well, Zeus.
Who?
Greek god. Or Ra, or Ganesh.
No, not those ones. The real one in the Bible.
Yahweh.
Just God.
Well, you know how you don't believe in all those other gods I mentioned? That's how I don't believe in yours.
How can you not believe that someone created all this, though?
Why do you believe that someone created it all?
Because it's so good. Can't just be chance, can it? What, the Big Bang? Everything came from nothing? That's impossible.
You're right. God did it.
Right.
So, where did God come from?
He's always been around.
There you go. Easy, isn't it?
That was good. He was pretty funny. And last little bit of funniness. This new this guy's kind of blown up recently in the Christian podcasting circles. Bryce Crawford. I don't really know much about him. I've just seen his name a lot. He's like a new upcoming streamer, podcaster, whatever. But here's one of his products. You guys will get a kick out of this.
Sponsor for our episode is my company, Praise Energy, energy with a higher purpose. We've been developing this company for over a year so that people know that the energy drinks and the hydration that are being put out are coming from a gospel-centered, faith-driven business where you know the heart behind the company, the people behind the company, love Jesus and want to see everyone know him as well. There's so many brands out there online that push different agendas and doctrines, and why support those businesses when you can support people who actually want to see the gospel go forth? Our energy drink has 100 milligrams of caffeine that comes from green tea extract, and we use monk fruit, organic cane sugar, and stevia to sweeten the drink to offer the cleanest sweetener possible. Furthermore, every energy drink, electrolyte package, and all of our products are prayed over before it hits our website or even offered in stores. We even have a QR code feature where you can scan our drink and put in a prayer request, and within 24 hours, a physical person from our team will have prayed for your prayer. If you want to know when we go live and offer our products for availability, go to drinkpraise.com. Sign up today so you can be the first to know when we launch. Go to drinkpraise.com. Sign up today so you know when we launch energy with a higher purpose.
Energy with a higher purpose, guys. Dude, that is insane. I don't even know what else to say about it. It speaks for itself. All right, so for our meat and potatoes, as I say, I found this really cool interview. I've been listening to a lot of stuff while I spent a bit of time today planting the garden, so got some tomato plants out. I still have a lot to do before it rains, and it's Tuesday. It's going to rain on Thursday, so I have to get all that out there. So while I'm out there planting and doing all that, I've been listening to some things. And this was one of the videos I listened to. It's just really good. Like, I mean, in terms of being able to use it for the stream and like make comments and so forth, I think there's a lot of really good stuff. And I'll just preface it real quick so you don't have to watch the intro. But the guy on the left is some guy named Thunderfoot. I guess that's like his online name. The guy on the right is Ray Comfort, which he's a Christian. The Thunderfoot guy is an atheist, I guess. I don't know when this discussion, actually it probably tells us. 2009. Wow. It's funny because I literally thought this was from like the 70s or something. But it makes sense because they talked about like Richard Dawkins and stuff. I was like, why are they talking about that? I don't know why, dude. Like the 2009s look like it's 30 years ago. It's only, I guess it's almost 20 years ago, but whatever. Yeah, I guess maybe I actually thought it was more like 90s or something, but whatever. But it's a really interesting conversation. And so I think what I'll do is we'll watch it together. I'll stop and pause and add some comments here and there. Because there's a lot of things that make sense about what the atheist guy says. Some things not so much as well. But I love the way that the Christian guy like cannot process what the other guy is saying. It's actually quite comical. So I'm just going to get it going. The guy's going to start off, the guy on the right, saying like, so you're an atheist. Why are you an atheist, basically? And that's where it starts off, okay?
So you're an atheist, although you don't like the word atheist. Why are you godless? Why don't you believe in the existence?
Well, I would normally go by the tag, if at all, of Hurlist, which is physical evidence and reasoned logic. And this is, if you like, the wellspring from which everything that we actually know, everything to build what you see in front of you, the metallurgy, the lights, all of this actually comes from physical evidence and reasoned logic. It is the foundation of our civilization. And it is what has brought us from the Stone Age to where we are now.
Mm. So, what was in the beginning? How did all this happen?
Well, there is the assumption that there was a beginning. I mean, this is what we would call in scientific terms an unknown.
You don't know what was in the beginning?
It's unknown. I mean, there are things that we know and the things that we don't know, and there are, as Rumsfeld would say, there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns.
But I could have stopped you there because I know what was in the beginning. You don't know. I know what was in the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You don't know. I do.
Well, that's a statement of opinion. It is not a statement of fact, in that you cannot actually sustain it with physical evidence and reason logic.
Well, do you believe nothing created everything?
There is, again, the assumption that there was a creation. This is, like I say, an unknown.
So you can't use the word creation or created because it denotes a creator. So what do you call it?
It's an unknown.
What do you call this thing that we live in? How did it get here?
Well, we live in a universe. I mean...
But how did it get here? It's just funny to me because he can't... That doesn't mean I'm saying the guy out in the red shirt, the atheist, is right, but it's like the other guy just like cannot process like what he's saying. He's like, no, but what created it? He's like, well, it's unknown. Yeah, okay, but what created it? How did it get here? He's like, we don't know.
Ultimately, you need some assumption to get going, and the assumptions that I make are the universe exists, and that you can learn something about it.
Do you think it's eternal?
I don't know.
So you don't know how it began, and you don't know if it's eternal.
It's unknown.
To you?
It's unknown to me.
Yeah.
And further, I would say that it's unknown to mankind.
Well, you can't say that, because you'd have to have omniscience to know it's unknown to mankind. You don't know what mankind knows.
Yes,
I
have a... Okay, this is getting into, can you ever disprove something? Well, yes and no. There is a practical growth of knowledge of how...
See, but even when he says, like, you don't know what mankind knows, it's like, well, I mean, I don't know this guy, but let's say you were inquisitive and you looked at all the things that humans have ever said. I mean, it's written in books, right? You would know what mankind knows. So it's not true that we don't know what mankind knows. We do know. But he's kind of like, well, no, I know there's a God, so you don't know that. I mean, I know there's a God. It's like, you don't know it. It's just something that you're believing.
How we actually discern what is real from what is not real. And this is essentially the scientific method. And this is what has taken us from the Stone Age to landing on the moon in about 300 years.
Did it?
Yes. And this is the growth of knowledge. I mean, you would agree that you and I are a little different from those who lived a few thousand years ago, yeah?
Right, we've just got more knowledge.
We've got more knowledge.
There's nothing to boast of. We're built on the knowledge of the past.
Yeah. And once you have decided that knowledge is a good thing, then really you want to set up civilization such that you expand the knowledge of mankind. And there are two ways you can do this. There are two factors. There's the extra knowledge that you acquire, and there's the knowledge that you can lose. You can lose knowledge. You know, you can have hard disks crashing and burn down buildings and all this sort of thing. You can forget it. But you can also have those who are essentially intellectual vandals, those who deliberately sow disinformation. I mean, you see this throughout history, particularly in dictatorial regimes. They put out propaganda, disinformation, right? Now, usually with dictators, they're worried about the maintenance of their civilization. However, in the scientific realm, the growth of knowledge is a more permanent thing.
Right.
So Newton's ideas, they may have been refined and such like, but essentially there is a degree of permanence to
degree of permanence, but it's going to be laughed at in 100 years' time. What we believe now, it's going to change.
No. I mean, Newton is correct on certain length scales.
I'm speaking generally.
Yeah.
The knowledge that we have now in 100 years will be laughed at.
And just out of interest, I mean, a philosophical question.
even that point, like he's saying the knowledge we have now will be laughed at. I think there's two ways of looking at that. One is you could believe something that's totally false and then you would be laughed at, versus kind of what he's bringing up with Newton. Like if you look at Newton's formulations of gravity or classical mechanics, it only works on a certain scale. But at different scales, like quantum mechanics comes into play, for example. So like he'll say this later, but it's like under certain like scales, it's a good approximation. So you wouldn't necessarily laugh at that. You'd be like, okay, that actually is valid in a certain context, but it's not ultimately valid. So on the one hand, it's like we can say we really don't know everything as humanity, but that's not really the issue. The issue is like, in other words, if you said, okay, well, in 100 years we'll laugh at ourselves because then we'll find out there really is a God or something, and we'll realize we didn't know anything. Like, I don't think that's really the real implication of in 100 years we'll laugh at our knowledge. It'll be more like, 100 years ago they didn't have cell phones, but they just hadn't developed that yet. They didn't understand electricity and miniaturization of technology. But it's not like they necessarily had everything completely wrong. There were some things that they had that made sense and some things that don't make sense. But the ideas about God is a totally superimposed set of assumptions that there is no evidence for. It's literally just information that you read in a book. You have no other evidence for it. You have no other reason to believe it other than the emotional attachment you have to it, where it satisfies your feelings of insecurity. He'll go into a really cool point about that a little bit later on, so I won't get ahead of him.
Completely random philosophical question. Do you believe that the universe is simply as we perceive it? In other words, do you think that you see in a relatively narrow wavelength, you have a perception over a very small range of timescales, right? And it may well be that the universe is, like you say, you scroll the clock back a few hundred years when they thought the Earth was flat. This is a perfectly reasonable assumption. You actually go out and you look, the Earth is flat. Yeah, right. Okay, so on certain length scales, this is a good approximation. It's only when you actually get a bigger perspective of the universe that you actually saw, or in this particular case, the Earth, that you realise that it's round.
Every generation thinks it's right.
Well, I wouldn't claim that. And so...
Well, which scientist says, we believe this, but we're wrong? When they thought the Earth was flat, they thought they were right. But we now know they were wrong.
They were right on a certain length scale. It is a very good approximation of flat. I mean, we are in a studio that makes a fairly good approximation of flat. It's only when you start to look at it on a length scale of thousands of, or even just hundreds of kilometers, that you start to realize this is not a good approximation. Right. The same thing is with Newton and relativity. Newtonian mechanics makes very good approximations over certain mass ranges and such like. But it fails when you get down to the very fast, when you get up to relativity, the very fast, or to quantum mechanics, the very small. Mm-hmm. Right? So the question, this is what you would normally call a paradigm shift. Do you actually think that the universe is as we perceive it?
No. Nothing is as we perceive it.
So...
You can't even tell me which direction up is.
Well, I can tell you with respect to gravitational field of the Earth.
That's right, because in New Zealand, where I come from, up is down.
Yeah.
We're all around upside down, so...
Yeah, so look, just bringing it up. So when
But that's actually kind of, I guess, proving the guy's point. Because if you define up as literally above you, then you would think that someone else's up is below you. But that's because you're not considering the greater context of what up really means, in the context of if you live on a spherical Earth and it's based on the gravitational pull, let's say, towards the center, then up is really just away from the center of the ball that you're on. So it's just your definition. It's not that you don't know what up is. It's just that, again, his point is it depends on the context that you're looking at.
There's a bit in where the devil tempts Jesus. I think he takes him up above the world. Oh. But of course that would be down. I mean, there's just a you would see this as just
figures of speech.
Figures of speech.
Now listen, why don't you believe in God's existence?
There is what is there that would sustain such a point of view?
Creation. You cannot have a creation.
Again. I said from the beginning that is an unknown. You don't actually know there was creation. You know there was a universe, and you said that it may not be as you perceive it. Right? When you get up to the very fast, intuitive reasoning fails you. The whole thing essentially dissolves into mathematics. Right? There is no intuitive interpretation.
So you're saying there's no evidence that God exists?
If you have some, I would be more than happy to.
You don't know how creation got here. You don't know how the universe got here. You say it's an unknown.
It's an unknown.
But you can't make our most intelligent scientists can't make a grain of sand or a blade of grass from nothing. We haven't got a clue how to create a piece of sand. We can't make cows. We can't make milk, cheese, butter. All these things that surround us, with our intelligence, we can't create.
So, I mean, in some senses, yes, we can create. We can manipulate matter.
That's recreate. That's with using God's materials to recreate. We can't create a piece of sand. So,
but again, you've made the assumption that the universe.
But let's take that argument at face value. Like, we don't know how you would create a tree. We could do something that kind of approximates like what a tree is, but you don't know, because we don't know how to manipulate matter at that kind of level, to where you can literally create DNA. Like, we don't know how to create DNA. So that would imply that there is some kind of a designer of the physical reality that we live in. But in the same sense that, like he said, well, creating like an iPhone, that's just recreating because you're using what's here to create that. I would argue, well, I'm just going to speak in hypotheticals. If there is a designer of the physical reality we live in, that doesn't mean that that designer had to necessarily create the physical substance itself. It could just be someone creating. Sandra says, I can definitely make cheese. That's not what I heard. So it's not what I heard. Last time you tried to make it, that's not what I heard. But yeah, some people can make cheese. I'm not going to put Sandro in that the Venn diagram of people who can make cheese and then people named Sandro. I don't think there's a lot of overlap in there, but I don't know. Maybe made some progress. So, and I would have to evaluate it personally, not based on a claim. So I would like to have evidence of that cheese. You didn't say it was good? Okay, well, exactly. But my point is, this is where it's like, I don't know why this is maybe difficult for people. Maybe it's not difficult for all people, but I just find most people, it seems like a difficult thought experiment or use of your imagination. Why couldn't the designer of this reality just be another being that's outside the context of the reality we're in, and it can mold and manipulate our reality from another perspective? Just like, if you play Minecraft, you can go in there with your mouse and your keyboard and you can manipulate the matter inside Minecraft and make things in it, right? And just like we as human beings in this reality can physically manipulate matter based on the physical constraints of our body, right? Like, I can't send out magnetic waves with my mind to take atoms and protons and reform them into new molecules that never existed, and I can't manifest some kind of a particle out of the substance of reality itself. But the other part of that problem is when we perceive reality as human beings, we only have certain senses we can perceive them through. And even when we create instruments to observe reality beyond our senses, like a detector that detects microwave radiation or something, it still has to translate that into a form that we can observe, like a graph or a video or a picture or numbers on a spreadsheet, something like that. So it still has to be interpreted through our senses. So, which would be just our mind itself. Like our physical body is a something that allows us to bring in data, but it's all processed within our mind. So we can only experience the observation of whatever the thing is with our mind. And our mind includes our visual field. It includes our feelings. It includes our thoughts, what even we would call intuitions. When we feel something physically also, not just feelings inside of ourselves, all of that is experienced as our mind. Like when you look at the room around you, what you're seeing is actually your mind projecting information that looks like it's outside of you, but you're really just experiencing it within yourself. That doesn't mean you're not really in reality, but you're not experiencing it directly. So, my point being, even though we can't physically manipulate matter in the way you would imagine a god would, that's because of the limitations of our physical body. So if you didn't have those same physical limitations and you were somehow, in the same sense that you're outside of the computer when you're playing Minecraft, if you could be outside the physical context of the reality we're in, where you're not just in this physical body, then I could imagine you could perhaps manipulate the substance of reality in a more specific way that we would see as totally impossible as a human being, right? So I would say, on the one hand, the Christian guy has a good point, but the atheist relies so much on our senses and what we can perceive, which, okay, we can't perceive anything else. I get that. But if we use a little imagination, because I think the problem is a lot of atheists, I think, are dishonest about the fact that our reality is designed. Like everything you see has a design. So the Christians sort of, because the atheist can't say, you know what, I'll grant you that there may be a designer of our reality, but that doesn't mean it's the creator of all existence itself, and placing it into a category of its own above and beyond all reality as the ultimate creator, the ultimate arbiter of truth and everything. It could actually just be a being like you. Just like if you were a character in Minecraft, you would perceive the human as God, but you know the human is not not actually God, right? It's just it's in a different context. So I think there's benefit to the point about intelligent design. There's a point there, at least to lead people to considering that the universe isn't just something random. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that there is a God above all of it that everything comes from. If you're going to argue that there's a designer, that doesn't imply the designer created everything itself from nothing. And any more than it does that because I can design an iPhone, that means I've created the matter of the iPhone. It doesn't imply that.
The universe is as you perceive it.
Okay. We can't make a frog, a fly, a bird, a tree. We can't. So,
no, I mean,
let me finish my sentence
please.
so you can see. So how intellectually dishonest is it to say if we can't create all these things, they happened by sheer accident, that they were just formed by themselves, or to say we just don't know, which is an ultimate cop-out. God created all these things.
See, this is the problem, where the atheists can never stand clearly about reality because they're like, well, I just don't know. It's like, well, then you're leaving the door open that someone like that is like, well, I do know. Because you don't have an actual real answer to them.
Gave you a conscience, you know right from wrong. You're a moral creation. You're different from the animals. And this whole genius of God's handiwork we see in creation as evidence of his existence.
Okay, so there are several points there. There is the creation of matter. There is morality. There is the origin of animal life. Right. So let's break this down into actual segments. Would you like to choose one?
Yeah, animals. What's the difference between man and animals?
Biochemically.
No, just what's the difference? Why do we perceive ourselves as being the highest?
So like, what is the difference? Like, it's already a leading question. It's like, what is the difference between animals and humans? Well, there are differences, but that doesn't mean there is a difference necessarily.
Form of creation, although we can't call it creation.
Yeah, I have
What's
no
the
problem
difference
with you
between
using
us?
the word. There are, in terms of biochemistry, there is virtually none. We are all made up of the same type of cells, well, at least with the other mammals. We have very similar DNA. It is all the same. It is all whatever deoxyribonucleic acids.
So that's a language, isn't it? DNA is a language.
Yes.
So how could you say that happened by accident?
Good
If
question.
you saw written on the sand, Tommy, come home at 12 o'clock for lunch, written on the sand, you would know from what you see there's an intelligent mind put it there.
It's an interesting point. How do you know that writing was done by a person?
Because you're a reasonable being. You have the power of reason.
No, well, there is a heuristic that you've gone through here to assess whether that writing on the beach was from a person or not from a person.
Did you say it happened by accident?
Accident isn't really an option. You have, if you want to call people different from nature, you have naturalistic patterns and non-naturalistic patterns. Yeah. Right? So you have actually gone through, you have observed a pattern, and then you have to assess, is this a naturalistic pattern or is this a non-naturalistic pattern?
I see the difference between man and animals is that man is a moral creation.
Let's keep on the writing in the sand. Okay.
See, but the problem with the atheist is that's a little bit self-defeating, I would say, because DNA itself, I would suggest, looks like a non-naturalistic pattern. And I think that's the point that the Christian's making. Is like, okay, if you see someone writing something, then you assume there's a mind, an intelligence behind that. So look at DNA. It's a computer code. It's a language. Like, there's definitely a designer to that.
So let's resolve this one first. So, I mean, you said previously on your videos, that a painting is a painter. Well, what are the metrics that you use to assess that a painting was actually done by a painter?
Common sense.
So it is an inductive reasoning. You have seen people, so it's entirely empirical.
Well, a child can figure that out, even without the experience.
Right, but it's intuitive reasoning.
Of course.
So, if you have the reason that you know paintings are done by painters is because you've seen paintings about painters do paintings.
But I'd still know it even if I hadn't seen a painter do it.
Would you?
Yes, I know. My reason to say that painting couldn't have happened by itself. Paint
can rainbows just happen by themselves?
No, God created them.
Did he?
So I know.
Did he?
It says it in Scripture.
Okay. Does God create the rain as well?
Yes.
So it has nothing to do with moisture rising into coleras and condensers.
That's how he put it together. The genius of God's creator's hand is seen throughout the whole of creation. You can see this order in creation. The evaporation.
All right, in the chat, who do you guys think is winning right now? Who do you guys think is winning? You can just put it in there. I'm going to keep it playing, but who do you think is winning right now? The Christian or the atheist?
I mean, let's take snow. I mean, we're in California, so it's a bad place, but...
Well, it's only 2 hours we get snow from you, up in the mountains. Yeah.
The idea that nearly pure crystalline water would fall from the air, what are the chances of that happening?
I don't know.
Well, they do happen. It's observed to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? So... But you would agree that no one is creating the snow.
God created the snow. Everyone is different. It's beautiful.
So it has nothing to do with crystallization.
That's what the process that God used to create snow.
This is a shell game.
Can you make snow?
Yes.
I mean, from nothing?
So you are asking, can I violate the law of conservation of energy?
That's right. You can't make anything from nothing.
Yes. But again, that's just an empirical observation.
So,
see, but again, it's kind of frustrating because to me, it's like the Christian's making a better argument, actually, in a certain sense. Because the atheist can't just say, well, okay, something created it. God, something, I'm not going to call it God, but something created all that design. What the fuck does that have to do with whether it's God or not? Like, because even though they don't necessarily get into this, then you don't get to pick and choose if God created everything, even the snow and all of that, that means he created every aspect of you. You don't get to then pick and choose that the bad things that happen in reality isn't God creating it as well. Like, either God's doing all of it or he's not. Because if you're saying, well, you can't create snow, then it's like, you're basically saying I can't create anything. So there's no getting out of the point of then God literally is just ultimately in control of everything. I think the guy's actually more Muslim than he realizes.
So let's get back to this issue. The difference between man and animals I see is that man is a moral being.
I just want to finish up on this.
Okay.
The painters make paintings as the empirical observation, right? There is no such empirical observation for the universe being created. The two are non-comparable
You can't
events.
make an absolute statement like that. You can say, I don't
They are
know any.
yes, they are non-comparable events, right?
But you can't say an absolute statement. There is no evidence. You have to have all knowledge.
I would agree with the atheist on this point, though, that they're not really comparable. Like, the painting didn't exist before. You can see that it wasn't formed in that organization, and the painting is there now. Okay, something created it. But that's different than the actual molecules or the actual substance, the physical substance from which the painting exists. The assumption is that something created that out of nothing. So, but why? You have no frame of reference for anything actually coming from literally nothing at all. You're just assuming that's the case. So I think that's more on the side of the atheist in this particular point.
You've got to say, with the limited knowledge I have at present, I don't believe
Yes.
there's evidence.
Okay, but if you're going to go down this line, then you...
No, I don't think that's an honest statement, that it's a belief. He's saying that you don't have any frame of reference for something not existing at all, ever, nothing existing, and then something creating everything from nothing. That's not a belief. That's a fact that we don't have any frame of reference for that.
You can achieve nothing. You're into nihilism. You can know nothing. You don't even know that you are here having this conversation.
Well, you can know the truth. It's all in Scripture.
Gotcha. He's like, no, you can know things. It's in the Scripture.
Yes, but you don't even know whether you exist, let alone whether it's scriptural.
Well, I know I exist.
How?
Because I'm a human being. Being means that you're aware of your existence.
You've made assumptions to get there. You've assumed the universe is real and you can learn something about it. Mm-hmm. These are the bedrock assumptions for the growth of knowledge. Mm-hmm. After that...
See, it's so fascinating because those are assumptions, right? The guy's like, well, no, I exist. I know I'm real. So you're willing to trust your intuitions about your experience that you're real. But then let's look at the world and actually just trust our ability to just sort out the problems that exist here. Why do you need to then focus on some creator that's out there that created everything? Why does it really matter? If you're willing to say, no, I'm not going to be a nihilist. I'm going to say, I'm here. I exist. That's a fact. Okay, so you're not going to be a total skeptic. All right. So then why can't we just look at all the systems that exist, all the things in this world one by one and say, what's not working about this? Let's solve that. But why does the person's focus go to, no, everyone just needs to have a relationship with Jesus Christ and believe in God and pray and all this? Like, why is any of that necessary? Suddenly you're going from a real common sense way of looking at the world and reality, which is like, well, I'm here. I don't need to question whether I exist or not. I'm here. But then you're now going to go into a whole nother imaginary aspect of reality where you're imagining things that you have no physical frame of reference for whatsoever, other than the book that you read that you've accepted as the word of God, when you know for a fact it was written by human beings. Like, at some level, they wrote it down. Now, you don't know where that information came from, but that's still an assumption you're making about the nature of the being or whatever that gave that information, just because it says in the book. It'd be like if I picked up a book of fiction, like the new Harry Potter book, and it says, every word in this book is true. It really happened. And I said, well, look, it says it really happened. I mean, it says it right there. It's like, okay, but you could lie. And they'll talk about that aspect of language in a bit too.
you can start appraising mechanisms by which things happen in the universe, and you can do this by gaining data and finding out what is the most acceptable explanation for this data. This is what we would call a theory in science. Right. And this is where you get Newtonian mechanics, Einstein relativity, quantum mechanics,
right,
and so on.
So can we go on now to the difference between man and animals?
Okay, but just to make it clear, I think there is non-parity between saying I'm cool with the observation, the empirical observation that painters make paintings. However, there is no comparison that gods make universes.
So you believe?
I don't see that there is a comparison between
That's right. Well, that's good. That's your opinion. That's
yes.
fine. So the difference, I believe, between man and animals is that man is a moral being, that we set up court systems where none of the other animals care about justice and truth. But man is separate because he has a conscience. He has a knowledge of right and wrong because I believe he's made in the image of God. You're made in the image of God. We're a fallen creation, but you're made in the image of God. You're a rational person. You can
see. I don't understand the way that logic works in a person's mind. Like, we're made in the image of God. We're different than animals. We're better than them. We have morality. We know what's right and wrong. We have reason. But we're also a fallen creation. It's like your get out of jail free card. You're like, but also I can't explain why people do fucked up shit. I certainly don't want to imply it's the system that I'm accepting and allowing that I would then have to take some responsibility to change, and I would have to stop accepting that God's going to fix things at some level for me, and there's somewhere else I can go. It doesn't really matter if I fix things here. It's almost like you believe, like, your house is burning down and you're like, well, it doesn't really matter because I have another house, and it's a better house. So once this one burns down, I'll just move in over there. It doesn't really matter. But you literally can't see the other house, and you're like, where is this house? You're like, oh, it's out there. Like, really? Like, did you sign the paperwork on it? It's like, no, like, I know it's there. I know it's there. But do you know it's there? Or is it that you are just not understanding how you could ever possibly put out the fire in your house? There's nothing I can do. But instead of just going insane, you're like, I mean, there's got to be another house for me to live in, obviously, right, guys? There's, like, definitely something out there.
Create music. You can appreciate a sunset. You know right from wrong. And that's the difference, I believe, between man and animals.
But also, he gets into this point later, too. It's like the assumption that everyone knows what's right from wrong. But then... Which then leads to the idea that if you do something that is not, quote, right, you deserve punishment for it because you knew better.
So, what is a conscience?
Well, the word con means with, and the word science means knowledge.
Okay.
With knowledge. So God has given you a conscience. As the scripture says, he's given light to every man. You know right from wrong.
But essentially, this is a heuristic for determining a worth of behaviors within a society.
Yeah, but even if it's not dictated by society, we still know right from wrong. You get a man brought up by wolves. He comes to New York, he goes out as a 20-year-old, been here 10 minutes, rapes a woman and murders her. And the judge says, oh, you didn't know right from wrong because you're brought up with wolves. So the judge would throw the book at him because every human being has a knowledge of right from wrong.
Have you any concept of something called the biological leash?
Oh, tell me about it.
There are certain characteristics of people which are intrinsic. The most obvious one being facial expressions. Even if someone is brought up by wolves, they smile when they're happy. They acquire things like body language.
Right.
Even blind children have never seen a smile will smile. There are other things that are intrinsic as well, like the ability for language. So
is that instinctive? It's different.
It's essentially, yeah. There is that balance between what is instinctive, and then there is a sort of smooth transition to things that are cultural. Yeah. So, for instance, polygamy, for instance, would be probably a cultural thing. You could probably even go to the Bible for it.
Yeah.
And that Solomon had what?
1,000 concubines.
50-50, whatever, 500 wives, 500 concubines, something like that. Right? And that was acceptable in the time.
For a king.
Yeah. I mean,
My mind boggles.
I even keeping track of the names, yes. But
make it more name
so
tags.
things like polygamy, there is some considerable flexibility there. And then there are things like murder and lying. Now these are also things which there is relatively little flexibility on. If you actually want, if you have a stable society, right? You don't observe unstable societies because they die out. Yeah. So if you have a stable society,
is America a stable society?
It propagates, yes. But if, for instance, your murder rate exceeds your birth rate, then the society is extinct. It cannot. It's non-viable. Yes. It's a simple thing. So there is an absolute limit to the amount of murder that can be accepted within a society. Yeah. So there is an absolute limit on morality, right? And then there is a degree of flexibility in there as well. You know, there especially in more poorer societies, the tolerance of say murderers is much less than in a rich society. Yeah.
See, there's a lot of dishonesty that's required, though, because if you're going to say murder is wrong, flat out, murder is wrong. Obviously, you could say, well, someone who is attacking you and trying to kill you, and then you kill them to prevent that. Let's say you reasonably saw that that was the only option, right? We probably wouldn't call that murder. We'd call that self-defense, right? But let's say you have two countries. The people who sign up and go into the military are most likely doing it, and in most cases, they're doing it because it's a job. I know there's all of the cultural programming we have around them being of service to their country and all those things, but at the end of the day, most people in the military are there because it is a job, right? They would not do it for free. And the same thing would be true on the other side as well. But because we think of things in terms of good and evil, we can justify within ourselves our military fighting someone else's military. So literally, a soldier going into a war, killing another soldier, we don't see that as murder. But you have a leader of a country who's making a decision that this war is valid. They're never giving all of the actual reasons for it. It's always almost an economic reason. And it's unnecessary if there was really just communication. So you have to then believe within yourself that it's not murder because it's some kind of like self-defense. But it's never really a clear distinction of who's the actual aggressor. It's very hard to make that determination of who's actually the aggressor, right? You could say when we started fighting with Japan, well, they attacked us at Pearl Harbor. But if you start looking into the history of what led up to that attack, there was a lot of pressure economically we were putting on Japan in terms of their shipping, and it was like a whole background story to that. It wasn't just like they did this evil act, like out of nowhere. They just decided to be aggressive, and so we had to defend ourselves. It was like something they were pressured into to a certain degree. Like, if I'm going over to my neighbor's house and constantly cutting their water lines so they don't have water, and then they see me doing that one day, and then they attack me because their cows and their family is dying because they don't have any water, and the only source of water is those water lines, and they keep seeing me do it, and let's just say they punch me and knock me out, I can't say, oh, look at this person, they attacked me, right? Which is not to say, it's not defending the Japanese attacking American Pearl Harbor, but there's also a lot of evidence, if you look into it, that they already knew the attack was happening and they deliberately didn't stop it. They could have prevented it. They could have evacuated. I mean, there's all kinds. You can go down that rabbit hole if you want. But even if I'm wrong about the details, if you just look at it as a thought experiment, these things happen, right? So my point is to say then, like, murder is wrong. But then you look at the world around us, and there's so many people who would justify things like war, and they don't look into the details of it. And remember, the devil is in the details. If you actually look into the details, you're like, oh my God, that wasn't fucking justified. And yet I justified it, thinking it was self-defense when it wasn't. It wasn't necessary. So that's where you say there's these moral absolutes and God has these absolutes, of morality and so forth, but it's very rare that you actually follow them absolutely. But then you'll say, well, it's because I'm broken. And it's like, well, then what value does God serve for us actually? In order for us to follow them, we have to not be broken. So they're lacking the capacity for self-forgiveness, where you just actually look and see for yourself, is this best what I'm doing or not? And why do you need God for that? The only reason you think you need God is because you don't understand the total design of everything. So you're like, well, I don't know what's best. But you do understand some basics. Like, should everyone have clean drinking water? Should we murder people that, if we can verify they're not doing something aggressive actually, should people murder each other? No. Not just because of what the atheist is saying, that, well, if our murder rate goes too high, then the population will collapse. Like, as if the only thing you care about is the viability of your civilization, which is not that you shouldn't care about it, but that doesn't have to be the only reason. You could also just say, well, would I want someone to murder me? Do I want to live in a world where people just randomly murder each other for whatever reason? Like, no, I don't. So I can draw the line within myself and say murder's not acceptable. I could still say self-defense is acceptable. You can make these distinctions, but you don't need a God for that. And I think part of the problem, part of the frustration I feel whenever I listen to atheists is they can't just make that argument of like, is it actually best for you to accept a world where people don't do things on the basis of what's best for everybody, including themselves? Why can't they just say that? But maybe they just haven't evolved that far in their thinking.
So that there is an absolute, right, if you like, there is an absolute morality here, right? There is an absolute limit to it. And then there is some flexibility. This is what you would call the biological leash. Lying is another one. The only reason we have language is for the transfer of information. If someone actually lies to you as much as not, then there is no point in language. The mere fact that we have language shows that we are a trustworthy species. Yes, and language is an instinctive part of the species.
There's a really great book called Footfall. It's by Larry Niven and I forget the co-author, but it's about this kind of like alien invasion thing of these aliens that kind of sort of resemble like elephants, but they're like more human size ish. And their whole society is around base 8. And the interesting thing in relevance to this is that they don't understand the concept of lying. Like, to them, they don't even know how to lie. They don't know what lying is. Like, they can't. So when someone's talking to them, they have an absolute assumption that whatever is being said is true.
You get a load of deaf people together. This happened in Africa about 20 years ago. A load of deaf people together, no one could really teach them, they didn't have the facilities for it. And they basically invented a language on their own in a couple of years.
I'd like to change the subject a little and ask you about death. What do you think happens after someone dies?
The same thing that happens before they're born.
You mean they don't exist?
Yeah, they exist.
Where do they go?
That assumes that they go somewhere, I mean.
Well, when someone passes on, as we say, where do they pass on to?
The body stays. I mean, the body is made up of atoms, you know? Okay. And the body is exactly as it was after death as before death. The only thing that's changed is the electrical activity in the brain.
So you don't think there's a soul? You don't have a soul? You don't have life?
No.
There's no life in your body?
Well, there is life, yes.
That's the soul.
That's the electric activity in the brain.
So you're just electricity?
Pretty much, yeah.
You've got a personality. You've got morality. It's more than electricity.
I think you'll find...
See, I think this is where the atheist's side sort of falls flat, because they don't want to consider the possibility that you could exist in other dimensions and that you're in your body now. Now, I know I can't say something that would prove that, but it's sort of like, because I can't sense that, then I have to assume it's not true. Like, I was born, then I existed, and then I died, and I just go back to the earth. I would argue it doesn't really matter. Like, from my perspective, whether you die and no longer exist, or whether you die and you continue to exist, it's really irrelevant, because all that matters is when you're existing, when you're alive, in any context, are you going to do what's best for all? Because no matter what context of any possible reality you could be in, the only way to manage that reality or experience yourself in that reality in a way that you would actually want to experience would be if you live from that principle. So it's really an irrelevant discussion from that perspective, because I think the atheist, unfortunately, because they can't consider that point I'm making, it's very difficult for them to see, like, well, I have a responsibility to actually do completely what's best for all now. And the Christian sees it as a way of like not taking, it's like both take it as a way of not taking full responsibility for the reality that they're in. It's kind of weird. But again, it's just based on belief. And I would say it shouldn't matter, actually. It shouldn't matter.
That in about a decade or so, we'll be actually... I mean, it's one of those interesting quirks, is that people all think they're unique. This is why horoscopes work so well.
Well, everybody's unique.
But they're not. We're virtually identical, both in terms of genetics, in terms of metabolism. Yet, where do you perceive that the differences between us are in here? Right? In terms of genetics, we are essentially clones. A couple of percent difference in genetics, right? But it's what's in the brain. That's what distinguishes us.
Uh-huh. So you're afraid of dying?
No.
Have you come close to dying?
Oh, several times, yeah. I mean, the last couple of times I've...
Well, I saw you on a video, and you were going like this. So
yeah.
You've got a will to live. There's something in you that says, I don't want to die.
Yes, absolutely.
So you say there's no afterlife. Where do you get your information from?
But also, I think not wanting to die isn't the same thing as being afraid of death. They are actually two different things. Like, having a will to live doesn't have to imply that you're afraid of death. Because when you're afraid of death, that can lead to all kinds of compromises in the actual living process that you're in right now. Because you're living in a way to try to secure something that makes you feel, well, now that you're not going to die ultimately, or something like that. So, and then unfortunately you would compromise yourself in your actual living process in reality wherever you find yourself, because you're afraid of not existing anymore. Why should it matter? So, but that doesn't mean you would be careless with your life either. You would value it.
This is the knowledge of mankind as we see it at the moment.
Well, no, hang on. A lot of people believe in an afterlife. Most people believe. It's not the knowledge of mankind not to believe in an afterlife. Just statistics say most people do.
The knowledge which builds everything before us, the knowledge that maintains and runs our civilization, has yet to find anything supernatural, any evidence of a soul, or any evidence of an afterlife.
You haven't found any evidence of an afterlife?
No.
I have. I've got the greatest authority on this earth as an afterlife.
I would say on the atheist point, you can't use civilization, technology, science, and all of that to say that because it hasn't found any evidence that you can exist after this life you're experiencing right now. It's like you're putting so much value on the knowledge we have now. But to the Christian's point, it's not really your knowledge that allows you to live here. Like, because you didn't create your body. Yes, you can do things to enhance your life, to experience, to live longer and so forth, but that doesn't mean that the knowledge we have here on Earth can discover everything that is true about reality if you assume that it's possible that there are contexts of reality outside of what you can perceive. So it's not a valid point from my perspective, what the atheist is saying.
Okay.
If I've got the word of a king, I've got a great word. I have the word of God.
Bingo, right. Word of a king. Very anthropomorphic. You think that someone who would create the entire universe would want to be a king?
Word of God I have. That's what I was building to. We don't have the word of a king. I have the word of God. The Bible tells me it's appointed man wants to die, and after this, the judgment. So there is an afterlife.
Yes. But again, I mean, earlier on in this conversation, you said that you believed that God made man in his own image.
But we live in a fallen creation, remember?
Okay, but you...
So I can use that when I want, but since we're fallen, if it contradicts, if there's any contradiction there, I can just fall back on the point that we're fallen. So I can have best of both worlds.
Do you believe that God was human in form?
No.
Then how did he make man in his own image?
Gave man a moral understanding, gave him reason, the ability to enjoy a sunset and music and laughter.
So this is metaphor.
Well, a lot anthropomorphism is right throughout Scripture. We understand when the Bible says the hand of the Lord was upon me, it doesn't mean God's hand was upon someone. The eye of the Lord is in every place doesn't mean there's a physical eye in every place. So there's a lot of anthropomorphism. And when it says God made man in his own image, doesn't mean God is a man. He's eternal.
Oh, yes,
He's
but I mean, if you think this is divine entity writing it, you would have thought he would have made that more clear.
Well, he's made everything clear to me. You believe the Scriptures? It's very clear.
Yes, but it is an interesting observation that there are many others who also read the same book and come to different understandings.
But that's human nature. I don't believe any two humans can agree on one thing. Would you agree with that?
You see what I'm saying? Like, we're made in the image of God. He gave us the understanding of what's right and wrong. He gave us reasoning. He gave us all of that, right? Then he says, yeah, but people, and you get that from reading this book, right? Like, otherwise you wouldn't know any of that, right? If you didn't have the book, you wouldn't know that that's what God did or why, that you're made in his image, that he gave you reasoning and so forth. But then when he says, yeah, but a lot of people interpret it very differently, all of this. Some people interpret it literally, some people metaphorically, some people come to different conclusions with the same information. And he said, well, yeah, but that's human nature. Well, what does that mean exactly? You're saying our reason, our sense of right and wrong, that comes from God. But our nature as humans, which is fallen, that explains why we can't all agree. That explains why very few people actually understand the Word of God. Well, then, where is the reasoning and the morality of right and wrong in the divine sense within us versus the human part? Are we actually somewhat divine somehow? So it's like he wants to use the fact that we have the gifts from God only to justify that this book that he believes is true and has all the answers and his interpretation of it is correct because that's from God. But that's the same thing that the person who has a different interpretation would say. They say, well, I'm reading the Word of God and this is what God has revealed to me. So, and how can they resolve that disagreement? Because they both have the divine reasoning and all of that. One of them has to be wrong, and they both think that each other's wrong. So to say that it's just human nature, I agree. But I think the disagreement and the human that human nature part, which is like the disagreement, the unwillingness to actually sit down and look at what would actually be best for ourselves and find a way to come to agreement with each other, that's the only reality. The other parts that we believe is the image and likeness of God, notice we only apply that to believe in God. We don't apply that to get agreement with each other to actually understand how to solve the problems here in our reality. We only use it in this other sense that has more to do with you basically securing your afterlife.
Yes. Well, people can agree on all sorts of things. I mean, this is, if you like, it's one of those interesting things that science, principles of science, because they can be independently established, are universally accepted. If you actually look at the Earth, you'll find that across the planet, everyone accepts Newtonian mechanics in certain ranges. Right? You look at Christianity, and it's very difficult to find two groups who have the same interpretation. They have different understandings of what they perceive as God. And just out of interest, a personal question now. When you say you know God, do you feel Him? Do you feel His presence?
I know God in the same way I know my wife. It's an intimate relationship with her.
So there is a distinct personality there.
Absolutely.
So
for 37 years I've had a knowledge of God, experiential knowledge of God.
Can you list me some of His attributes?
Holiness, righteousness, justice, truth, mercy, love.
Anger, fury, wrath.
Oh yes, that comes with justice.
Very human emotions you're describing now.
Because God made man in His image. We have the same emotions that God has. I mean, when you hear of a little girl being sexually molested, raped, and strangled, and then...
See, but why don't we assume that the jealousy we experience, or like the actual, what you would call the flawed human nature, why don't we assume all of that's from God too? And this is the part where the imagination is very limited. It's like, well, but God wrote in the book that He's really perfect and He never does anything wrong. Maybe He's lying. Maybe he lied to you. Maybe someone did design this reality, and they did want you to be his slave, just like it says in the Bible. They want you to be his servant. It wants you to obey him. Maybe all of those things are totally true. But why this assumption that he's telling you the truth, that he actually loves you, that he actually has your best interest in mind? It's like if you work at a corporation, they're going to tell you how much they value you as an employee, and you're an integral part of the team, and everything is done with you in mind and all this wonderful stuff. And then they'll fire you with an email at 6 a.m. And after that, you're dead to them. They don't care about you anymore whatsoever. So I think it's interesting that people are so, because you're born into a reality that's really not really working for you. Like, we should experience the reality we're in, and the systems that we create as human beings should reflect what it is that we're looking for from God. We're looking for something that loves us. We're looking for something that provides for us, that takes care of us. And there's a lot of things we could automate in our current physical reality as human beings that would do that, not only for human beings, but for everything on the planet. It would just take a lot of hard work. It would take a lot of, it would take the democratization, or maybe that's not the best word. It would take an equalization in terms of everybody's abilities to understand science. And by science, I don't just mean what's written in the textbooks, because some of that's probably quite limited, because a lot of it is created and funded by an unequal economic system. So we already have a system in place that doesn't value everyone equally, because we don't value each other equally. We actually think we're all pieces of shit. And only God is perfect. If we just got rid of the God concept and we said, okay, look, we're all pieces of shit. All right. Let's stop being pieces of shit. You say, well, but I can't even afford my water and my gas bill this month. Like, okay, let's rework the economic system and make it work in everyone's favor. Well, how could we possibly do that? It's like, we could just discuss it. Are there people in this world who don't want that to happen? That would be the question. And are there people in this world who not only don't want that to happen, but use the concepts of God to manipulate everybody into accepting that, look, as God says, you just accept your place in life. It's all a broken world, and everyone's broken, and it can never really be perfect, and there's so much evil out there. Not me, of course. I'm not one of the evil ones. But, it's evil things and Satan and all this. It can never work out. So, but don't worry, because the good news is God is infinitely merciful, and he's going to take care of you afterwards. Just believe in him. Okay? Don't change anything here. Don't worry about change. Can't change anything here, but just believe in God. And it should be very obvious to people now. And I think a lot of more people is becoming more obvious to people now that is actually all the God concept really is for, is just to keep people in a form of mental slavery so they don't challenge the system that exists and change it, which is like really sad actually, because even the elite are finding out that the system doesn't work and it cannot sustain everybody on Earth. And instead of actually sitting down and working out how can we actually bring everybody up to an equal level where where everyone could understand science. Again, science would go through leaps and quantum leaps in its understanding if it wasn't strangled and constrained by the desire to just make profit to benefit just a few, to keep certain people or certain groups or certain corporations or whatever in a position of power that requires inequality.
Well, buried alive as it happened in Florida a little bit. Remember that? Did you feel anger towards the guy that did it, or just who cares?
He said there was a girl that was like killed and buried alive and so forth. Somebody, did this, and he was like, "Wouldn't you be angry at that person?"
It is one of those things that when you live in a population of 6 billion, obviously, if these things happen very close to you, to your children, that's like you have much more intense emotions over this, but. Yeah, I find that sort of thing abhorrent.
So you had a sense of anger?
Yeah.
Because you believe in justice and retribution.
Justice
you're made in the
and
image of
retribution.
God. Yeah, when a man does that, he should be punished. You don't say reward the guy for doing that. He should be punished severely. A little girl buried alive?
You think that's functioning of a normal mind?
Yes. No, you mean to do that or to punish him?
No, the function of a normal mind. Do you think that? We covered this earlier that there is a maximum latitude that is permissible for things like murdering in society, and likewise, there is...
Actually, that's an interesting point. Perhaps in that context of maximum latitude, war is just something that we accept because it doesn't destroy the population so much that we can't reproduce enough. And it serves an economic function, unfortunately, of destroying capital so things can be rebuilt and rejuvenating the economy. We talked about that last night on the stream. So I can see in that kind of logic, you could see why war happens, even though, because like what he's saying, it's not morality really. It's not an actual following the thing to the T. There's like an acceptable sort of variance there, and there are some absolute lines that you can't cross. Like, for example, if war and murder, let's just call it war, was allowed to the point where there was so much war happening all the time that it was literally killing people at a rate higher than the birth rate, everything would collapse. So it's almost like we can tolerate a certain amount of war, but when it crosses a certain line, then it's like not good anymore, and we wouldn't allow that. That's the kind of moral decision-making process you have when you can't just like actually consider what's best and say like, there's no reason that it's best.
A social exclusion. People feel the need to socially exclude these people.
You give them their own little city?
Well, no, I mean, it's one of those things that...
That man should be punished. Don't you think that? Do you think everyone in prison should be let go because they're all sick?
No, absolutely not. But if you like, do you believe in punishing the mentally ill?
Of course not.
He said, of course not. But again, like going back to his point, like if you're murdering a child, like, isn't that person mentally ill? And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything about it and allow it, and but why would you say you shouldn't punish the mentally ill? It's like, or I guess what I should say is, where do you draw the line? Right? And so again, it's like, should we punish people? Should we not punish people if they're mentally ill, if they're not? It's like, can you not just consider like what would actually be best for all? Why is there mental illness? Why are there criminals? What's going on there? But it's so hard to parse out because you have to start with the assumption that there's nothing you can do to change the system. So everything that happens after that, you just have to deal with it. You can't just like kind of start over in a sense, which I know we can't literally just start over, but you can start over in terms of principles and say, how would we start changing things so that, you could actually understand that the fundamental root of crime is poverty. And I know you say, well, but there's rich people who do crimes. I understand that, but again, that's in the context of a world where there is poverty. Poverty is a function of the fact that we accept inequality. So if you did not accept inequality as an assumption of how things should work, you also wouldn't accept the inequality of people who are in positions of power abusing that either. So you would resolve both sets of crimes if you had a world based on everybody's actually equal value as life, and you have systems in place to support that. Then it would become very obvious who's mentally ill, because there would be no reason. You couldn't, like, it'd be hard to go, you have to go to the prisons and look at each person there, who's actually doing crimes when they know they shouldn't. And there's no reason. Like, if somebody doesn't have food and they can't feed their kids and they go steal something to feed their kids, is that person doing something wrong? I mean, according to the laws, yes, but why does that person have to be in a position where they can't make enough money to feed their kids? Why didn't they have the education? And then you have to look at the fact that even in our economic system, a lot of people can't get jobs now. So what do you say to them? If you found yourself in a position where you couldn't feed your kids and nothing you could do, you could not get a job, there was no way you could make money, like what choice would you have? Would you say it's more moral to just let your family starve? I mean, I don't think this guy would agree with that. Of course you would do whatever it takes. But then why do we even have a system that would create those conditions in the first place?
You believe that someone who would kill, murder, rape, kill little girl and bury them is functioning on all cylinders in their mind?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah,
he says
you can
yes.
eat food, you can drive a car, you can take a little
Most mentally ill people can as well.
Yeah, a lot of people in Los Angeles like that. I agree with you. But you can't say everybody's mentally ill.
No. There are folk, though, who are genuinely screwed up from the brain chemistry.
Yeah, it's understandable.
They're pathological.
But not just brain chemistry, like the conditions of their experience growing up. If they were beaten as a child incessantly and molested and things like that, they're going to be fucked up when they're older. And now to say, well, they know the difference between right and wrong. But why didn't we protect them as a society from that experience as a child and place them under that extreme mental pressure within themselves where like they're not really in control of what they think, how they feel, they don't understand what's going on inside them, they don't understand the choices they make. Very few people really understand most of the choices that they make. So it's, again, we're trying to have this argument while we're still accepting a system that's not best. So then you're just arguing over these little points that there's no resolution in any of them. So the best the atheist can do is just say, well, it's all just a matter of calculating, how much murder can we allow and how much should we not allow? And we have to keep populations, birth rates higher than the murder rates and everything. It's like, how about just no murder? Let's just remove the conditions that would make that in any way seem like a reasonable thing to do.
Lies and the such like. And you get these people in MRI machines, you can actually sort of see the difference in the brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Right? So there is actually metabolism here. I mean, if to punish these people is almost redundant, you're punishing them for what they are.
We agree with
right?
We're in
agreement. But there is a cultural aspect as well that even if that is what they are, you can try to actually make them a functioning member of civilization. I mean, your only other options is exclusion or killing, which is basically what the Bible goes
put
to.
them in prison.
That sort of exclusion.
Well, I think that's the right thing to do when someone kills a little girl. I mean, in theory, they're alive.
And so you would punish someone for having screwed up brain chemistry.
I wouldn't say I screwed up brain chemistry. I said they did something evil and wrong, and they should be punished. And this is why hell exists. Hell is God's punishment for evil. God makes a judgment whether someone is mentally sound. If they're continually evil, they will get justice from God.
But the problem is, then why punish them? You can't know whether they have sound chemistry in their brain, if you want to use that term, or not. Only God could possibly know that. So anybody you're punishing, you might be just punishing a mentally ill person who can't control what they're doing. Because it makes no fucking sense why you would hurt a child like that. Why would you do that? It makes no sense. So you would have to believe, no, everyone knows what's right from wrong. But wasn't the original sin that we chose totally insanely against all reason and evidence? We chose not to obey God. When he was right there in our face giving us everything we need, we still chose not to. That's totally insane. So it's just a story. It's not real. But you believe that story, so it makes sense. Like, oh no, everybody knows what's right from wrong. And God will punish them. Well, then why are you punishing them? Because you don't know.
Hell exists. I'm not interested in convincing you that God exists. I know that you already know that. The Bible tells me that. I want to convince you you're in terrible danger. And if you die in your sins and God gives you justice, you'll end up in hell. You may not believe that, but I know it to be true because I know God. I've experienced his mercy and his love. I know what it is to have my own sins forgiven, and I want to see you receive the gift of everlasting life also. Are you familiar with Penn and Teller?
Yes.
Did you see his little video clip where someone gave him a Bible and what he said about it?
No.
May I read it to you? It's just a paragraph, but it's this is what Penn said. He's an atheist that's really committed. If a dollar bill comes across his path, he scribbles out, "In God we trust." That's commitment. This is what he said. If you believe there's a heaven and a hell, and people could be going to hell or not getting everlasting life or whatever, and you think that, well, that's not really worth telling them this because it would make it socially awkward, how much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them that? I mean, if I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was coming at you and you didn't believe it and the truck was bearing down on you, there's a certain point where I would tackle you, and this is more important than that. And that's what I'm trying to do with you. I've got a love for you and a concern for you. I know God is real. I know we are created by God. We're moral beings, and that God's standard of righteousness is infinitely higher than ours.
See, like, maybe he's being genuine that he really does love people that much. But then there's still something fucked up in his brain to not be like, there's literally children dying of starvation right now. And you're worried about telling this guy that he's going to go to hell. Who cares? how are you any different than the guy who killed this child and buried the child that he was talking about? How are you any different than that while you're allowing this to happen in the world? And I mean, I can't judge this guy because he doesn't understand. But I'm just, in terms of the thinking process that he represents, now we're in 2026. So now the information is here that's like, hey, really the problems is that we're not doing what is best for all. We're not living from that principle. And so the point of God now just totally sabotages all of that, because all it does is allow people to assume that whoever is the authority who speaks on behalf of God is right, and they're afraid of getting punished because they want to avoid hell. And so they don't actually look at the system we live in. They're just afraid that the system's going to punish them. It's the same point.
Considers lust to be adultery, hatred to be murder, lying lips an abomination to him, and he set aside a day in which he'll judge the world in righteousness. And he's made provision for you to be forgiven, to have your case acquitted through the suffering, death, and resurrection of the Savior. All you got to do is repent and trust in him, and you'll know the truth. The truth will make you free. You'll come out of darkness. The fear of death will leave you, and you'll come to know God, not know about him. You know, I prayed every night for 10 years. I used to say the Lord's Prayer out of habit. It was, and under a minute, 10 seconds, I could rattle off the Lord's Prayer. It was a sleeping pill. I believed in God, but I didn't know him. And on the 25th of April, 1972, 1:30 in the morning, I came to know him.
When?
25th of April, 1972, 1:30.
Sorry.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because there's some points I want to get to.
You think that I'm wrong about religion, and this is meaning to you, right? So we can now actually, I can transfer a model from my mind to your mind of what you think. We can even do it with people who aren't here. For instance, Kirk Cameron. I can say that I think Kirk Cameron thinks you're a swell guy, and you've created the model in your mind, and you've attributed the properties to it of that he likes you, right? And you can go even further. I mean, I can describe people to you who you've never met, and you can create models of them in your mind. I mean, let's take, for instance, buddy of mine from back, a guy by the name of Todd, who's a good guy, and much of what I know about religion, I've gained through these in-depth discussions with Todd.
What's his last name?
Cyril.
Has he written a book?
Not that I know.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
That's actually so funny that he says, has he written a book? It'll make sense later. It's almost like a foreshadowing of his argument later. I don't know if that was on purpose or he knew what the guy was doing, but you'll see what I mean later. That's actually kind of funny. I didn't catch that before.
So he's an exceptionally able guy, and he's not perfect. I mean, he's got a bit of a temper on him, and the one thing that, I mean, he's very able. Don't get me wrong. He, in every aspect that I would compete with Todd, he could outclass me completely. And everyone who meets Todd has a very high respect for him. You can probably see where this is going now. You know, but Todd's got a hell of a temper on him. And the one thing that grinds his gears more than anything else is when people don't recognize his ability. And he has a knowledge of everything. Everything that I've ever asked Todd, he's known the answer.
Does he know what happened in the beginning?
He knows everything.
So he knows that God created him?
He knows more than that.
Wow.
But the one thing that really annoys him more than anything else is when people don't recognize the vista of his intellect.
So you're saying this is God? Is Todd like God?
Well, this is the thing. How would you distinguish Todd from God?
Well, Todd's a man that's going to die. He's got
no. Todd's got pervasive knowledge, but and Todd. Let me finish this thing. Right. Todd can do terrible things to people, and the only way that you can appease Todd is to accept him into your heart. I mean, you can't think about these things. And because Todd's got such a terrible wrath that he won't just go for you, but for your children, visiting the inequities of the father unto the children unto the fourth generation.
Finish the whole verse. His blessing on thousands and thousands of generations. Look at the blessing God's given you. He's given you a good mind and eyesight.
Let me finish the thing. But there's good news, right? that if you accept Todd into your heart, then he will fill you with joy and knowledge, and you will experience happiness.
You have been a poor victim of the modern gospel. Nowhere does the Bible promise happiness. Nowhere does it say to accept
right. This is not what I am showing you is the mechanism by which you proselytize in terms of psychology.
I never tell anyone that Jesus will make them happy.
I do, because this is the mechanism of the propagation of the thing. I mean, if you accept Todd into your mind, right, as a person, a real person, and that he will make you happy, to actually have the figure in your mind that loves you does actually give you comfort.
But this is a
This is real, yeah, but it's real. The comfort that it gives is real. It's a placebo,
yes.
But the comfort that it gives is real.
You're talking about religion.
No, I'm talking about people's ability to create. Right, there are various themes to it. It's got.
This is, I think, one of the most profound parts of this discussion. It actually is a really cool point, because he's saying you can create a model of someone in your mind that you believe gives you like safety and comfort and feelings of, you can say happiness, whatever, joy. And just by having that model existing in your mind, you actually experience those feelings. It's kind of a unique explanation of the self-hypnosis, essentially, or the auto-suggestion that people, when they say like, oh, I have this relationship with God, and I experience the joy of God, and I talk to him every day, and he brings me comfort. But he's trying to explain you could literally just do that with anything. You can create that model, because obviously this is how, like, let's say a Christian who truly believes in Christianity, this is how they would explain what a Muslim is doing. Say, I pray to God and I get all the, or somebody who's in some other religion, nothing related to even the Abrahamic gods or any of that. They say, I pray to this deity and I get these blessings and this comfort and this sense of peace and joy and all this stuff. But it's because you're able to create those feelings within yourself based on the rules you've set up within yourself as to what this model represents in your mind. It's really no different than if somebody's really obsessed with Nike shoes, and when they wear the Nike shoes or they own them, they feel important, they feel valuable, they feel cool, they feel better than other people who don't have them. The shoes themselves don't actually do that. Like, someone who doesn't value them doesn't care about your Nike shoes, but when you have them, it's what that thing represents. So it's like a model you've created of those things in your mind. This is such a really cool way of pointing that out, because that's one thing I've had a challenge with trying to get through with people when they're like, oh no, but I have a relationship with God, and I feel the peace, and that's how they know it's real, is based on the experience they have within themselves towards that model, that concept, that point within that they've accepted within themselves.
It's got to be an alpha. It's got to be a powerful figure. It's got to be an authority figure. People are biologically tuned to respond to authority.
So you're saying people are easily deceived?
This is, if you like, a bastardization of the ability of people to create models of people.
So they're easy to be deceived, people?
It's like I said, it's not so much a self-deception.
Okay, we're going to have to hold right there.
They're just taking a break to change their camera.
And it turns out that maybe in 70% of the time that they'll do this. Biological leash thing. And that people are biologically tuned to respond to authority figures. You're familiar with the Milgram experiments?
No.
Right, so let me give you a scenario. Man dressed as policeman walks into a fast food restaurant, commands one of the employees to strip search one of the customers. And it turns out that maybe in 70% of the time that they'll do this. It's basically people will respond to authority figures. And if you like, historically this is essential in that if you're going to have any society, if you're going to have, say, two conflicting societies, you need to have people have allegiance to their communal group and to the hierarchical structure of it.
You can see it in Nazi Germany, you see it in religion, you see it opening of the masses.
Bingo. Right. This is where the Milgram experiments really came in, was were the Nazis really evil, or were they just people like us? I mean, you have to bear in mind that Nazi Germany was a first world Christian country. None of those factors, I think, are relevant.
Why did you say
First
they were a
world,
Christian country?
They were a Christian.
He goes, why'd you say they were a Christian country?
I mean, Germany was Christian when Nazism came into it. Hitler put fake pastors in those churches.
It was nonetheless.
But the point is, the people in Germany, the vast majority of people were Christian. He's not claiming that Nazism in itself is a Christian ideology. He's saying that when the Nazis came to power, all of the people in the country were Christian. And then he's gonna explain it more, but it's like, so why did they go along with something that, if you accept the story of what happened there, why would they have gone along with it? Something that's clearly very evil to do, like round up people and kill them and do all these things, right? Why would the Christians have accepted that and gone along with it?
A first world Christian country.
So he did everything he did in the name of God?
No. The fact that it was a Christian country is actually essentially an irrelevance in this, right? The important thing is that they were people essentially no different from you or I. And the exact nature of the Milgram experiments was there would be two people, actors. One of them would be an authority figure who was asking questions to a subject who had to answer them, and the subject was wired up to an electrical device, such that when they were actors, right? And then the real subject was, you would ask me a question, and if I got the question wrong, the authority figure would give me an electric shock, and he would turn the dial, and I would scream.
I'm familiar with that experience.
Right, okay. And what this showed is that maybe as many as 70% of the people would give near fatal electric shocks, or would, in order to actually comply with the authority figure. And if you like, it's there are two aspects to it. There is maintaining allegiance to the society through the authority figure. And also, if you turn your back on your society, you're now an outcast or a renegade. So people are biologically tuned to respond to the authority figure. So if you now have the authority figure in your mind, this is, if you like, with the standard street preaching you do. You ask questions like, are you a liar? Have you ever stolen anything? These make people feel bad. The natural response to that is, you want to show to me that you are not a bad person. You want to make an act of contrition, right?
No.
This is what's happening in their mind, right? If you feel bad about something, but in order to not appear, in order to remain allied with the society, you feel the natural response to perform an act of contrition. In other words, you've immediately put them on the back foot by making them feel guilty.
But why would they feel guilty?
Because of the leading questions. Scientology does this very well.
Because they are guilty. I never tell people you're a liar. I say, have you lied?
I would recommend you take a look at the way that Scientology functions, in that, they have a fairly similar way of doing things. The question is, what are your crimes? Right, very direct question.
Yeah, but
right, and immediately you are the beater. You're the subservient. You are the person who has to justify your actions.
Well, let me just take this from another point of view. I'm trying to.
I mean, look at that. That's actually a really cool point, because he's basically saying the way religion functions is it has the person confess all of the sins, the crimes, the bad things they've done, etc. And then it's like, see, you are guilty, and that's why you need forgiveness from God. But they don't really explain to you, which when you look at the destiny perspective, is how much of what you have been doing in your life is just to fit into a system. So are you actually guilty? And it's like your mind will tell you you're guilty, you're bad. Instead of you saying, hold on, no, I'm not bad. Which doesn't mean to then justify continuing to do things that are not best. It's to just realize, oh, I'm allowing my mind to lead me into believing I am broken. That's who I am. Instead of just forgiving yourself and then saying, okay, if I actually can choose who I want to be, if I could start over and have a clean slate, which will take time to do, but let's just say you could hypothetically just start all over, what would you choose? Wouldn't you choose to be a person who always does what is best? And you say, yeah, but I can't because I did this before. You see, so your mind will again convict you, and it'll tell you, nope, you're bad. See, you won't do that. So I'm not saying that it's that easy to just have the clean slate. But what did Jesus mean when he said become like a child? It means like go back to the point within yourself where you forget for a moment who you believe you are, and then start to restructure yourself to think, to consider, okay, what would actually be best? And so this is relevant here because the whole concept of God short circuits anyone actually even doing that. Because when you start to look at who would I be if I could really just choose who I want to be, and I want to choose who I want to be based on something that will last, something that I can stand by for eternity. As I pointed out earlier, it has to be someone who does what is best for all, because then you do not create consequences on others, which would eventually come back to yourself. It's the only logical way to live, actually. But then you have the system, which is like a reflection of the exact opposite of that, essentially. And then it's like, well, but I have to fit in. And if I don't fit in, and I don't allow others to abuse through the system, I don't allow the abusive system, the system will punish me. God will punish me. So you're taking this need to fit in because your survival is based on it, and totally short-circuiting the process of people actually learning like who they actually could be. And so that's why I'm so adamant about the fact that we have to create a new system, because as long as the system continues to function in a way that's not best, it's continuing to condition people into accepting that they are broken, that they are fucked up. But it's because it's creating the conditions and then blaming you inwardly for that. You're not looking at it. No, it's just the conditions. But then, of course, some people are on that side of like seeing through a little bit of like, it's not me, it's the system that's fucked. But then what they do is they just start blaming the elite or blaming some group of people or something, which is not a solution either. Because if someone is hypothetically deliberately abusing the system to have an advantage over other people, they don't give a fuck. So that's not going to work. Like, you need to find a way to work together as a group collectively and actually change the system to not allow it to be something that can be abused. But the religion point in general, and also our education system and our education around science, and really it's our entire education as human beings, which includes religion in many cases, because it's a fundamental part of our education that we receive from our environment and from the system we live in. It short circuits that whole process. So you will just never question the system within you, which is your mind telling you you're bad, and the system that's reflective of that outwardly, which is like, nope, everyone's not equal. Some people are more important. Some people just are better. And it's just the way it is. You have to accept it. So in order to not have an entire existential crisis at all times, you have to accept, well, maybe there's got to be something better somewhere. And maybe there's something that's just ultimately merciful and will just make it all better for me, even though I don't deserve it, which is just a fantasy.
Convince the person they have a terminal disease.
I'm going to play a little bit more of this before we stop tonight, because there's a little section here I want to comment on, but I'm not going to go through to the very end. But there is a section coming up here that I think is really interesting.
Because there's a cure. And unless they admit they've got the disease, they won't want the cure. So the disease is sin, the cure is the gospel. Yes. And that's the difference.
But the problem is, if you look up... Actually, let me just do that for a second. Because this is such a fascinating point to me. He says the disease is sin. What is sin? Sin is fundamentally defined in religious context, particularly Christianity, as a transgression, rebellion against, or falling short of the perfect standard and laws of God. It represents a violation of divine will, encompassing intentional blah, 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 which separates humanity from God. And what I want to suggest is that we tend to assume that sin just means you're doing bad things that God says you shouldn't do. But that's not really fundamentally, ultimately, like the core concept of sin. Original sin is a foundational Christian doctrine holding that humans are born into a state of separation from God, inheriting a corrupted nature inclined toward evil rather than good. It originates from Adam and Eve's disobedience So what I would suggest is that it is the non-acceptance of God as the ultimate authority. That's my definition of what I think sin ultimately really comes down to. Because if I were to say to somebody, well, why don't we just not sin? I don't believe in God, but I'm just going to look at what's best to do and only do things that are best. They would still argue that's not good enough because you couldn't do that without God. And yet I could read the Bible and learn what God says to do what's best. What if I was able to come up with the same things, but I still didn't attribute it to God? That still wouldn't be enough. Because it's like all of the ideas about God's laws and he knows what's best and all that stuff, that's all a cover story. Because the reality of it is, it's really just about you accepting the authority of God. That way, you will accept authority here on earth as the system that exists and not question it. Even though at the same time you'll do a mental gymnastics and say that the entire system is the opposite of God. It's the product of us not listening to God. Okay, well, let's just look at all the things wrong with it and do the opposite. We can't do that without God because we're separate from God. That would be the argument every time. You have to accept God and then somehow you'll be able to do it. So what I'm saying is it's like the reality of it is it's a program that ensures that everybody will just follow the authority. That's really what it's about. But then the problem is you don't know what the authority is. You have to read a book and the book says, I'm the authority. And you're like, well, it says I'm the authority, so that must be the authority. But the book was written by people. And even if it was written by quote unquote God, how do you know you can trust it? How would you know? And you say, well, it's easy. It's God. You just trust it. Well, there's 15 different books. There's 100 different books that all say are from God. And they all have slightly different or wildly different, sometimes, perspectives on what it means to follow God. So there's really no way out of the point that you actually have to decide for yourself what actually is acceptable, what's not acceptable. And why do you need God for that? You actually don't. You actually do not need God for that. You just have to be honest with yourself. Do not deceive yourself. Don't fall back into fear because you're like, well, the system's too big, it can't be changed, right? That's just fear. Why? Even if you believed in God, why would you fear the system? You shouldn't. And if you're just going to do what's best for all, why would God be displeased? Now, I don't even like saying that because it almost implies that there could be a God or something. It should just be totally irrelevant. The reality is we're here on earth. All we have is ourselves and each other. That's it. So now we have to sort out the problems in our world like that. And if we have to argue about God, and then it only ever leads to a lot of people totally accepting the system, leaving it alone as is, and then thinking we just need to accept God, that's what it comes down to, that's never going to solve the problems. And I'm just not interested in heaven. I'm not interested in the afterlife. I would rather heaven be here. And it's not going to come here because I trusted God to do it. Because if we could trust God to do it, he wouldn't have created us in the first place. He would have just created it perfect in the beginning. And to say like, well, we had to learn. Well, we didn't learn and we're not learning. So that's not really a valid argument because no one's following God's laws perfectly. And everyone would admit that. No, there's no way we can. We can't possibly do it. We're just too broken. The only way is for God to give us mercy and accept us into heaven. I'm like, right. Why do we deserve heaven then? We don't deserve it. We don't deserve it at all. God's so merciful. No, if he accepts us and we don't deserve it, that's retarded. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I would say the only way to have heaven is we have to create it here. I guess I agree with the Raelians more than the Christians on that point. That doesn't mean I believe it's going to be done through science per se and cloning, but it's really we could just do it in simple ways initially. Just make sure everybody has what they need at a very basic level. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's just solve the bottom part of the pyramid first for everybody, and then we'll step up from there. And let's do it together. Let's not do it from a communist dictatorship fucking point of view. Let's just actually work together and come to agreement about what actually would be best. What does everybody need?
I wanted to give them something good, but they won't accept the gospel until they acknowledge their sin.
And that cuts to the core point.
That's true.
Diseases are real. You have nothing for the Gospels.
Well, is sin real? Do you acknowledge there's such a thing as sin?
As I stated earlier, there are things to which there are absolute limits to with morality, and there is some flexibility with the
Is there right and wrong, absolute right and wrong?
This is probably, I think, also other than that other point we were looking at, this is probably the best part of the conversation right here. It really exposes a lot. Are there absolute right and wrong?
There are limits to which you can. There are limits to the behaviours you can have.
Is adultery wrong?
Adultery, sleeping with someone else's wife.
Yes.
Culturally, yes.
Is it morally wrong?
So, is it morally wrong? Could you think of a scenario where, hypothetically, you have somebody who is married and has an agreement with their wife that they can sleep, that somebody else can sleep with them, and hypothetically it doesn't cause any instability in the marriage, and they just see it no different than going over and hanging out and watching football together? I mean, hypothetically, in that scenario, assuming it didn't create any consequences, would it be wrong? And then you could say, well, but it would have this consequence and that consequence, and maybe it couldn't be done in a way where it wouldn't have consequences on somebody. And I would be like, okay, so we can just evaluate it on the consequences. It doesn't have anything to do with whether God tells us it's right or wrong. Like, we could see for ourselves whether it's right or wrong. I could just say, yeah, it's fine. And then you could argue with me why it's not fine. But if you have to say, because God said it's wrong, that doesn't really explain anything. And I know with my children, when I explain something more and more so they understand, then they can make the choice themselves. If it's just because I said so, they're like, well, I'll just do it when you're not looking. Like, they don't care. Like, that's what I would hope for a human being as an equal. To be like, just because you said not to do it, like, why should I trust you? What if you say tell me not to do something just because it actually benefits you and it doesn't benefit me? And like, wouldn't you want the person to understand, no, it actually is to your benefit. Let me help you understand why it's to your benefit, it's to everyone else's benefit to do this or not do this. Because then now the responsibility is on them. I've taken the responsibility to educate them, to be able to understand what I see. Now the responsibility is on them. But when you say it's because God says so, the person has to assume that God is correct, that God is the true God. But again, there's a multitude of options there. And then you have the atheists who don't even believe in God. So how do we ever hold anybody to any standards? Why don't we just explain to the world why some things are best? Would it be best for everybody to have food? The kind of food that they need, that's healthy for their body, that they also prefer. I mean, you would want that for yourself, right? And if some people don't have it, they're going to be angry and they're going to fight. And that's going to cause a lot of conflict in our world. And that's going to eventually cause perhaps insecurity for yourself to even be able to get food, because the economy is not going to function effectively because people are fighting over resources. Like, if everyone had what they needed, there would be no reason to fight. Like, it's very easy just to explain why it would be best in that particular case. You could do that with lots of things, but we won't even have that conversation as human beings collectively because everybody's arguing about shit that makes no sense and has no bearing on our reality whatsoever. Is adultery wrong? Well, instead of us just asking, is it wrong? Let's have a conversation and see if we can reason out why it would not be best. What do we mean by adultery? What is the actual context? Does it depend on the context? Maybe, maybe not. Like, let's look at all the scenarios. And at the end of the day, why does the person even want to commit adultery? What are they trying to get out of it? Are they just trying to have some kind of energetic experience? Is that even best in itself, to just do things just for the energy of it, not considering the consequences? What would the consequences be? Let's discuss those consequences and let the person decide. You know, even though there's that desire for energy, to have that experience, it wouldn't actually be best. Now let me ask myself, why do I even have the idea of fucking someone else's wife or husband? Why does that stimulate me? Why couldn't I just do that with my wife? Like, oh, well, it's boring. Or, okay, let's look at that. Why are you bored over here? Like, what are you accepting and allowing about your relationship where you can't, if you've already made an agreement with this person that you're going to be married, why can't you work together? But there's also already the assumption that husbands and wives don't really talk and they have separate lives, they have separate desires and separate goals, separate purposes. So it's already a situation that's not best at all. And then we're trying to add on top of that, well, don't do adultery. But without looking at all of the points. So I'm going to continue here.
Cultural. I mean,
what about rape? Rape, is that wrong?
Again, in terms of, can you have a stable society in which there is
what
rape?
Culture would say rape is right? I don't know of any culture that says rape is good.
Okay, but look, Is adultery wrong? Let's just talk about from the Ten Commandments. Is adultery wrong? Yes, it is wrong. Don't do it. In what kind of culture could adultery possibly be okay? It says it's wrong. God says it's wrong, right? Okay, rape. What kind of culture could possibly accept rape is okay? Okay. I mean, is that because God's, like, why would he even say, in what possible culture could it be okay? Why would it matter? Even if there was a culture where it would be okay, it would be irrelevant because God says it's wrong. It should be irrelevant whether a culture could or could not accept it as right or wrong. So why is he even arguing with that? Why wouldn't he say, no, it's wrong because God says so? He's so quick in the other ones to be like, no, I know the truth. It's right there in the Bible. God says so. But then when he talks about rape and adultery, he's like, it doesn't matter. What culture would it be wrong? What possible culture could it be right or acceptable in? What does it matter? If I could come up with hypothetically a culture where it somehow is acceptable by them, would that change anything? If it's really just about what God says is right and wrong, or is it that God says it's wrong because of the common sense that it doesn't make sense to do it? Like, which is it? And if it's the common sense, we could just do that. We could just use that common sense ourselves. I mean, we're already using reason and all of those points to believe in God in the first place, according to this guy. And we have this moral sense of right and wrong within us already.
Morally good.
Well, if you actually take a look at our closest relatives, actually you'll probably contest this, but if you look at chimp culture, there are lots of similarities to
but they don't set up court systems and punish people do it.
Actually, they are on a much smaller scale.
Very much
the troops, but yes, they do. They reward people who act for the society, and they ostracize people who are aggressively who are detrimental.
Is pedophilia wrong, morally?
It serves no benefit for the society.
Yes, it does.
No,
it makes a lot of people happy. And it could have monetary gain
and this
for
is
a lot of people.
This is the core point. With all these decision making things, you have what is good for the individual, what's good for you, and what's good for the society. Yeah. And with civilizations such as ours, the benefits that I gain from this civilization are beyond comprehension, and that the knowledge that I have been given from civilization, to reacquire that knowledge, is the value of that knowledge is greater than anything I could possibly achieve in my lifetime. There is 300 years since the Enlightenment.
But it kind of shows you that the atheist's God is actually just civilization. Because he's like, I couldn't recreate this. So if I do things to destabilize it, that's not good. Versus like pedophilia is wrong. You don't have to even use the word wrong. You could say wrong in a moral sense, but you could just say it's not best. Period. A child can't consent. They don't understand it. Why would an adult even want to do that? Because again, going back to like the adultery example, what does that experience? Because it's only for an experience. There's no other reason for it. You can't reproduce. And I mean, yeah, maybe you could make some argument about children can still be adolescent or through puberty or so forth or whatever. But is it actually best? Is the child developmentally, maturationally at a point where they can take responsibility for that relationship? No, they can't. The adult is in a different position in terms of their experience, their development, and so forth. I mean, you could, again, we don't even have to say it's right or wrong. We could just have a conversation about it and look at it. Because even if we say it's right or wrong, it won't really stop someone else from doing it, because either they don't care if you say it's wrong, or they think they can escape punishment if you say you're going to punish them. Wouldn't it be better for us to actually collectively look at the point and come to an agreement and an understanding of why it's not best? Because like he said, there's no benefit to society for it. Well, there's no benefit to the individual either. Right? And like he said, well, you know, and obviously he's being facetious, but he's like, well, but sure there is. It makes people happy or something. It's like, does it actually make people happy? I would argue it's much like pornography or, you know, any other number of things like that. You're just doing it for the energetic experience it gives you. And it doesn't even, like even that energetic experience you get from whatever the thing is you're doing, whether it's a sexual fetish, pornography, drugs and alcohol, that kind of stuff, the experience actually ends up creating consequences that are far worse and outweigh whatever positive experience you define as positive anyways within yourself, that are not best for you. They're not best for other people. You're just literally stealing energy out of reality for you to experience. That's not an effective or a best starting point towards living in reality. And I know that gets a little deep. It's a little deeper than most people are really able to consider right now. But it's the same attitude that allows us to destroy rainforests. It's the same attitude that allows us to, for some people, to play the stock market and short a currency and crash an entire market just because they want to have the experience of winning a whole bunch of money, when lots of people then their lives are totally fucked because somebody wants to win. So wanting to win, that experience of winning, always has to come at the cost of a loser. So you could go through and just look at, why does anyone need to win? If everybody had what they needed and we were just able to express ourselves and be creative, you would see that winning in itself, in the context of winning and losing, is like a very immature concept, actually. Winning should be defined in a way that everybody benefits. If there's a loser, it's not really winning, because you would have to believe, like we've talked about in previous streams, you're an isolated individual life that exists on your own, totally isolated and separate from all other reality. You're not recognizing that the other being that you are abusing is also you in another life form. That's also you. You're doing that to yourself. Would you want to be on the receiving end of it? You would not. So you could just also, let's love your neighbor as yourself, which doesn't require God to tell us that. That is common sense, isn't it? But I'm going to go a little bit further here, because there's this really cool point that comes up in this whole discussion. It should be coming up pretty shortly.
Where we've gained knowledge, right? And thousands of people have worked on this. So the value of this knowledge is almost beyond comprehension. And I have been given this knowledge. This is the benefit of living in a society. As an individual, you can never achieve this.
So is pedophilia morally wrong?
It serves no benefit to the society. I mean,
See, but the problem is the guy's using the word morally wrong, which already has the implicit assumption that it's wrong because God says so. So, and I think the guy's trying to be careful with how he answers, not because, I mean, I don't know the guy. I would assume he doesn't support pedophilia, but I don't know. Let's just assume he doesn't. He still doesn't want to answer the question directly, because he's saying, is it morally wrong? But morally means, in the context of how this guy's using it, because God says it's wrong. And he's trying to give an argument that, I'm not arguing in the sense of, is it right or wrong based on what God says? I'm trying to look at, does it serve any benefit? I think he's not going far enough into the point I was bringing up with, like, it shouldn't matter if it serves some benefit to society. Like, you could argue that somebody, like, being murdered, who's, like, not done anything, they haven't hurt anybody, they haven't done anything where it's not a self-defense situation, and you're murdering this person, but somehow it benefits everybody, like, that still wouldn't be best, because you're just saying the benefit to everybody else is greater than just the benefit to the individual. Why can't we look at, does it benefit everybody, including the person? Why should we have to make a choice between the individual or society? Like, let's actually look. Why are we even in a situation where we have to murder somebody to benefit everybody else? Why would we ever allow things to be like that? So you could take the pedophilia point into the same line of reasoning and just say, how is it of benefit to anyone? The person doing it, or let's say the abuser. If you're talking about specifically in the case of abuse, like, you're not in some fantasy bullshit of like, oh, the child is consenting. Like, fuck that. I'm saying, clearly, if you're talking about pedophilia, there's an adult involved and there's a child involved. So the adult would be the person who is the adult who is abusing the child. So how is that best for the adult? How is it best for the child? And how is it best for anybody else also? I don't think you have to stay at the level of just, well, it's not of any benefit to society. Unless by society you mean literally all the people involved, I suppose. But he's just not making that really clear.
Yeah, what other definition is there of morality?
Well, you haven't got one. You don't have an absolute morality. I do. The Ten Commandments tell us absolute right, absolute wrong. They're eternal, written in stone. We're going to be judged by them. But you see, you can't say pedophilia is wrong, because where do you get your basis? There's a society that says it's wrong. What's this society says it's right?
Well, I mean, it's one of these things. Can you conceive of a civilization that would be stable and paedophilia was accepted?
That stable shouldn't come into it. I mean, Nazi Germany was stable.
Yeah.
They had everything running like a machine.
Actually, it wasn't.
It was run like a machine.
It was run like a very bad machine.
Oh, well. But stability shouldn't be the criteria. It's the morality that should come into it.
I think stability is one consideration. I don't think it's the only consideration. Like, I would say our society is stable and we have wars all the time, but we should just not have wars. I don't think that would make us less stable. It actually would make us less stable because the economic system we have is based on requiring war. But there's a relative stability to our system, although if you were to stretch out the timeline, you're going to find out it's not actually stable. It's actually in the process of collapse. That's why they have to constantly reset the money system and invent a new way of money and financialization and so forth. So it's not really stable. Like, because you say like civilizations are stable, but they all collapse and there's always new ones. So there's no civilization that's ever been truly eternally stable because, I mean, we're in one right now, and you could say the civilization we have now is stable up until the point of today. But the cracks are already starting to show. So there's never actually been a stable society. So I wouldn't use stability itself as the criteria, because I would argue that if you want stability, then all decisions in the society should be made considering what's best for all, not just on the basis of does this create stability in itself. The stability will come if all the decisions are best for all. If they're not, that's where you get consequences which eventually accumulate and spread out, which cause the instability. So that's unfortunately, I think, where the atheists fall short, because they can't see that best for all point. So they can't really bring forth something that actually works. So that, it's never really going to come to any sort of agreement with the Christian.
Not stability.
But who defines morality?
God.
So it's nothing to do with the people in the society?
No.
So is polygamy right or wrong?
In the Old Testament, there was dispensation when God said it was okay. Because
so if God says paedophilia is okay, then paedophilia would be okay?
No, you wouldn't go against a small character.
But
you see the problem? Is polygamy right or wrong? He can't say, no, it's wrong, because it goes against God's moral character. He says, well, he makes dispensations depending on the people at the time. But before he just said, it's not about what society believes, it's about what God says is right and wrong. So is polygamy right or wrong? Well, it's wrong today. So now it's moral relativism. But then when he says pedophilia, because this guy feels very strongly it's absolutely wrong, where does it say in the Ten Commandments that pedophilia is wrong? You could try to go through there and maybe, well, if he says this, which you could imply means this, but it's not in the Ten Commandments. Neither is polygamy, as far as I know. It says don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't kill, don't murder. The first four are like love God as number one, obey your parents or respect your parents. Don't worship false idols. Like the first four are all about God, and then it's like don't steal, don't murder, don't covet your neighbor's possessions, don't covet your neighbor's wife, and there's a few more, but it's nothing about pedophilia. It's nothing about polygamy. But then when he says polygamy is okay because depending on the culture at the time, but pedophilia, no, God would never do that because it's against his moral character. Would God ever murder? He does, so murder isn't against his moral character. Although in the Ten Commandments it says don't murder.
There is so again the God seems to be a very reasonable. You don't have any problem with God within his character being for polygamy or not being for polygamy.
The thing is,
you don't think that he could. I mean, with God, all things are possible.
Mm-hmm.
So by the Bible, what would be to stop him just saying pedophilia is okay?
I wouldn't think in that realm. Because God is righteous and holy and perfect and just, and all his judgments are righteous and true.
Yeah, so if he says paedophilia is good, then paedophilia is good.
Okay, you can believe that if you wish. I wouldn't go there.
But why not? If God said paedophilia was okay, would paedophilia be okay?
I wouldn't even. I'm not going there. It's a silly. It's a
This
straw
is not
man.
this is
It's
not
a straw
answering
man.
this is not answering the question, man.
Well, it's a question I'm not going to answer because I fear God.
What does fearing God have to do with it? Like, why can't he just say, yes, if God said it was good, then it would be good. However, I don't think God would say it's good because I don't see any reason why he would say that. Because he doesn't want to say that God could even hypothetically say it's good. But why doesn't he have a problem with saying that about polygamy? Like, well, I mean, it depends on the moral, the cultural context, and God, his morality changes what he accepts and allows. Why didn't God just be like, no, polygamy is absolutely wrong, do not do it? But Solomon or whoever it was had like 500 wives and 500 concubines. It was okay because he was a king and it was the times, and so forth. But the pedophilia, definitely wrong. So is God a moral absolute? Like, how will we know when we get to some decision that has to be made about something that's a moral type thing? How do we know when it's a absolute and when it's a God's allowing it based on the context of the time? Like transgenderism, for example. God doesn't really talk about it. I mean, you could go through and look at metaphorical things and say he says there's only one man and one, you could try to make an argument, but there's no like 10 commandments. Thou shalt not change your gender. It doesn't say that. So how do you know he wouldn't allow a dispensation? Because we're living in a world now where lots of people are experiencing themselves as euphoric in their body and so forth, and people are kind of accepting of it in some parts of society. So what does God really care at the end of the day? It's kind of like Solomon having 500 wives and 500 concubines. Like, just, it's a dispensation. But I guess now they've said, well, no, the dispensation's over. Jesus came. So now everything I believe, now wherever society is at, it's God's law now. You have to do mental gymnastics to make it make sense.
Reverence God. I love God. It's like saying...
I've been reading the Bible, and there are passages where they say that you can do things such that you won't have to serve God in fear.
It's...
I'm not going to get drawn into...
Let me just qualify what I was saying there. If you said something that's derogatory about the character of my wife, I wouldn't go there. That's the spirit I'm speaking of.
I wouldn't go there for... That's an irrelevance for this discussion.
Well, that's the analogy I take when you talk of God saying pedophilia was morally okay.
That's within that's what we were discussing.
Well,
where does morality come from?
Here's another question for you. If your favourite dog is dying and your rotten neighbour is drowning, they're both drowning, you can only save one of them.
See, I think he just doesn't want to answer it because he realized that the way he's thinking about morality actually doesn't make sense. Like, because you're relying on God to be the absolute authority that decides for you what is right and wrong. And you're saying, I want to follow that completely. It's not about my decision-making process. And then you say, well, but one time God allowed polygamy. So why don't we allow it now? Where in the Bible does it say, maybe I should check that. Let's see. Where is polygamy? I don't know what the right word is. I'm just going to write outlawed, but I know that's not the right word in the Bible. Paul mandates that overseers, elders, and deacons must be the husband of one wife. Okay, for leaders. In 1 Corinthians, but because of the prevalence of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife and each woman her own husband. Highlighting a one-to-one relationship because of the prevalence of sexual immorality. What does that even mean, though? Paul is answering questions about marriage, acknowledging that while celibacy is honorable, marriage is a necessary defense against sexual temptation. The verse serves as a counsel to prevent fornication or sexual immorality. Porneia. That's interesting. The word comes from sexual immorality. By channeling sexual desires within marriage. So it's not even from God. It's literally just something Paul came up with as a way of helping people like deal with their wanting to like have sex with everybody. That's not even from God. That's just Paul. like, you're now having to jump through all these hoops that, like, God spoke to Paul. Paul, then everything he says is correct. Does Paul promote slavery? See, look, Paul did not promote slavery. Rather, he provided instruction for how Christians should conduct themselves within the existing deeply embedded social and economic system of the Roman Empire. While he did not explicitly call for the immediate abolition of the institution, his teachings introduced principles that ultimately undermined and led to the collapse of slavery within Christian societies. Paul instructed both Christian slaves and masters on how to behave righteously within their social roles. He told slaves to obey their earthly masters as they would obey Christ. He commanded masters to treat their slaves justly, fairly, and without threatening them. So even Paul, in the context of the New Testament, was still doing the same dispensationalism stuff. And that's what I was wondering, is when they say God made dispensations in the Old Testament, which he didn't explicitly say, but let's assume that's what he meant. And then you say, well, okay, but now there's no more dispensation. But then even after Jesus came and died and was resurrected and all of that, and then, you know, showed himself to Paul, they were still doing it. Undermining slavery's foundations. He declared that there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female. Well, hold on. So this introduced radical ideas of human equality that conflicted with the core principles of slavery. There is neither slave nor free. But he also says there is neither male nor female. And if you were on the live stream about transhumanism, from transgender to transhuman, Martin Rothblatt, we labor under an apartheid of sex that is both unfair and unreal. The legal separation of people into male and female sexes is unfair because it deprives everyone of the right of creative self-expression. It is also unfair because separate is never equal, as the age-old and modern repression of women amply demonstrates. Wow, isn't that fascinating? I was literally just kind of saying that tongue-in-cheek in a way earlier when I was saying, you know, maybe God would make dispensations for our current modern times with transgenderism. And then I read this from Paul. I think there's kind of an argument there you could make. Hey, just like, you know, he wanted, this was like the undermining of slavery. This is the undermining of sexual slavery, or the sexual apartheid, as Martin Rothblatt calls it. But then we have to use our human reason to decide and go, well, no, but that's not within the character of God, even though he literally says there's neither male nor female. There's neither slave nor free. The only way you could be consistent here is to say either he means slavery should be abolished, gender also should be abolished, or he's saying it doesn't matter if you're a slave or you're not a slave, you're still saved by Jesus. It doesn't matter if you're a male, doesn't matter if you're a female, you're saved by Jesus. That's not him saying there shouldn't be slavery then. In his letter to Philemon, Paul urged a slave owner to receive his runaway slave no longer as a slave, but more than a slave, as a beloved brother. Okay. I mean, that sounds like a pretty specific context. I mean, why doesn't it just say, oh no, and in this chapter, Paul said, actually, slavery is totally wrong. And I know you guys don't want to hear that right now, because it goes against a lot of what you believe. But, you know, it's really just wrong. Just like Jesus came in and told people God isn't just the Yahweh of the Old Testament and you follow the rules of the Judaic law and so forth. It's really about the commandment to love and accept Jesus. Like, he really stood out there bold and he got killed for it. We're not going to be afraid like that. We're just going to say it like it is. We're just, from now on, we're just telling the truth, nothing but the truth. And that's it. Like, we're not going to hold back. And he's like, well, actually, you know, you should treat your slaves well. And they're like, see, this undermined at some point slavery. Did it? Or did it just, it's only because slavery was undermined that then they come back and go, oh shit, we're not doing slavery anymore, guys. we got to figure out how to argue that all this stuff was actually in the Bible, and like that's all you got. That's it. Crazy. Crazy. All right. I think that's it for tonight, guys. See y'all tomorrow night, 8:30, same time, same place. And see you on the next one. All right, good night, guys.